about their belief system, which is fine, but this is for us to talk about having been led as we believe. Why do we believe what we believe? Why is it important for us to get into the scripture and the manner in which we do? Why do we study the way that we do? Why do we live the way that we do? Why do we proclaim what we proclaim? Why do we treat our wives the way we treat our wives, etc., etc.? Having been led as we believe is the point of this exercise for today. So we're not here to, matter of fact, let's make this clear as well. We're not here to say that because somebody believes differently that they're terrible. We're not here to say that because somebody doesn't agree with us that they have to go to hell. We're not doing any of that. We're just simply saying that we believe some things, and our belief system, it leads us. Okay, so having been led as we believe. Shalom, Morel. Oh my goodness, I didn't call you this rising. I'm going to make it right. Right. We're talking about having been led as we believe. All right, this is part 3. And shalom, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. I appreciate that. Shalom to everybody who's coming on. Shalom on both platforms that are on already. I'm trying to get Facebook up and going so we can get into this real quick. On Facebook, we have to make sure we get all our stuff on there so people know where to find us. Now, Facebook seems to be trying to hit us with the shadow ban. I mean, well, Facebook always hits us with the shadow ban. All of them do, but they're being especially forceful with it. That's okay, though. We're going to keep doing what we do. We know that when we do this and we run into opposition, that's the belief system that we hold, is that when we run into this opposition, we know what's really going on. And thank you for everybody who's on here. Hopefully you guys are having a great day so far. We're here every day at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on here every weeknight at 8 p.m. I'm sorry, on weeknights, on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern in New York time. Once again, we give all honor to the Most High Yahweh Elohim. We give all honor to everybody who's on different platforms. We give all honor to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Trying to make sure that I get this stuff up while I'm talking to you. We're almost finished. We give all honor to each and every one of you for taking some time out today. You did not have to today. However, you decided to join us, and we don't take that lightly. No matter how long you're on with us, if you agree with us, if you don't agree with us, etc. For those of you who will be on, we give all honor. Also, too, I'm sorry, when it comes, we're thankful and grateful for everybody for being on and being with us. And we're excited and thankful to be able to go through these items again. And we're thankful and grateful for what the Most High is doing. Let's see. Alrighty. Yeah, we starting off with a weird question. All right, everybody who's on, thank you. Shalom, family. Shalom, everybody who's on Facebook, on the podcast, here on TikTok, etc., etc. We're thankful and grateful to have the opportunity again of being with you all. And we're continuing once again this series, having been led as we believe. This is part 3. And today we're going to focus in on law. Right? We're going to focus in on law. So for those of you who have your law, have your constitutions, right? I'm not sure what section and subsections we'll be going through today, but we will be dealing with that together. I do apologize for TikTok. We're having our normal issues and the rising. Just switch the signal over again. Hopefully we'll have a little better. We'll deal with that a little better. All right. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for wishing the best. Shalom, glory, and to everybody who's with us, who's new here. We thank you once again. We appreciate you. And we know that we can't do this without you guys. And we take no. Well, you know what? Let me say it like this. We comprehend, we understand that what you guys are doing are helping us with kingdom building. And we know we can't build this kingdom without you. So we're thankful and grateful for everybody who's on here again. everybody who's being part of the community, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we're talking about having been led, once again, as we believe, right? As we believe. And we're talking about canonical viewpoint. It's the kingdom of heaven. We're also talking about from a viewpoint of, of people who are Afrocentric. And people who are trying to come out of Willie Lynch syndrome. And at the end of the day, really trying to get to humanity. The end of the day is all human beings should come under the same umbrella as humanity. And no matter what issues we're talking about, whether it be schism, capitalism, socialism, classism, feminism, racism, whatever, at the end of the day, it's always, oh, hey, happy to see you as well, Howlin' Wolf. At the end of the day, it comes to the same place, the same system of belief, the same things that we should be pressing towards. And today we're going to focus in on law, because if you comprehend law, then it's easier for you to comprehend what we say we believe. Yeah, whatever isms we want to put on that list, right? And ISM just means a system. So when we say be in the system but not of it, some people would use the term be in the world but not of it. And shalom, Sister Bonita, I see you. When we say these things, what we're telling you is that there's a system in place that causes you to be frustrated. And we believe that there's only one system that's based on kingdom law, universal law, natural law, laws of attraction, law of first mention, all these things that you talk about, whether it's admiralty law, common law, law of equity, admiralty law, all these different laws that are there. We believe that when you comprehend law, it's easier for you to come out of something. When you comprehend law, it's going to be a lot easier for you to come out of something. All right. Once again, when you comprehend law, it's going to be easier for you to come out of something. Right. That's what the deal is. And thank you to the people who are moderating. We appreciate you, and as well. Right. So thank you all for being on. So law is crucial. Right? That some of those laws are real and some are fictional. Well, once again, so we're dealing with having been led as we believe. Our culture dictates to us what we believe is real. Culture dictates beliefs. Beliefs inform emotions. Emotions will get you to your feelings. Feelings will inform your mood. Your mood is going to have direct correlation to your effort or energy that's put into something, and your effort or energy is going to establish your habits. So if you're going to get from culture to habits, then you have to deal with your culture, and our culture has certain laws. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Eternity says those laws only apply to flesh, born again of spirit, kingdom of Christ. So this is what laws do. In any set of laws, this is what laws do. Whether we can talk about they're real, fictional, they're twisted, they're perverted, whatever. This is what laws do. There's something called rights, and then there's something called law. Law protects your rights, right? It protects your rights. Now, there are some things that there are no laws for. We talked about that already. I don't remember which day recently, but we just talked about that recently, where Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, right? For the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, greatness, faithfulness, meekness, and temperance. And then it says what? Against such there is no law, right? So you don't have to have laws against things. Matter of fact, even when it comes to the Constitution, right? Even when it comes to the Constitution, there's something called like common public interest, or like public interest. Basically, they actually do public interest tests, or you might even call them state interest tests. They do certain things lawfully, as far as they test to see is a law necessary, right? So when it comes to the fruit of the Spirit, against such there is no law. So there's no law against love. There's no law against joy, right? If somebody loves somebody, we know that's not a great law, right? When you had to have something, even to this day, that's celebrated, Virginia is for lovers. What did that come out of? Virginia is for lovers came out of something specific, to where there was a couple, there was a so-called white person and a so-called black woman. She actually wasn't black the way we think. She was actually black indigenous. She was native. Right. But of course, because she looked black, we just do this thing of, she had to be African all the way, even though all of us come from the same place. However, you get the gist of what I'm saying, prayerfully. So that's why Virginia's for lovers is a thing, is because they got married, and wasn't their last name Love or Lover or something like that, or Loving, something along those lines. But the state of Virginia wouldn't allow them to get married, and it was a whole huge deal. right? Because they had a law against loving one another. Well, that is something that we would call what? An illegal love. What's up, Wycliffe? Are you going back to Wycliffe, Jean? Just because I have long hair and stuff, and that's you got to be better than that. That's the best you can do. It's like when people come on here, I get the Ricky Williams say, "Come here, Ricky Williams." It's like basically you look for any Questlove. It's like we don't look anything alike, and our hair, although it's long, doesn't look anything alike. You guys don't be like, you see a white guy on TV and you can see with long hair, and you just go, "Hey, what's up, Sean? Sean White?" Doesn't make sense. You said Elohim. Well, we talked about that before with the difference between God and Elohim. Once again, you said Elohim didn't create that law. Correct. However, he does have some law that he created, right? Which is what we want to talk about, because law protects rights. So if he and here's something, we have in our book, one of our books, the difference between being right versus righteous, right? And we're looking at, hopefully, when Women in Red happens on Saturday, we should be able to have the book. And I actually meant to play some of the music this rising. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. That's going to be coming out as well on Saturday for those who've been waiting patiently. But when we talk about the right, right versus righteousness, a lot of people want to be right instead of righteous. Now, righteous means to be within right legal standing. However, we could break it down. I don't even think this is in the book. We could break it down a little more simply. And hey, Nzinga, Queen Nzinga out here, taking care of business against the Dutch. You said my volume is too low. I don't know if I can turn up the volume. Unless maybe my microphone is bad. I don't think I can turn on the volume on Facebook. I apologize. People have been complaining that our volume was really bad on Facebook yesterday. So I don't know. So I apologize. Right? But when you're talking about law, law is something that protects rights. So this is what right and righteousness is. Right? You have rights. You have the right to do whatever you want. That's what's called, that's what we would say is free will. You have rights to do whatever, okay? But your rights, once they infringe upon somebody else, they are no longer righteous. So righteousness is when I live something that does not harm or bring harm to anybody else. Hopefully it doesn't bring harm to yourself, right? But righteousness is when we have something that protects an eternal place where people should be able to live in a safe space. I'm sorry, Howland Will said, can you touch on the subject of people using the word minority in and out of law? Well, first of all, minority. Well, lawfully, you could be minority or majority. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, if we want to go to the most basic sense of the term, to go both ways, we're talking about minority as far as, see, lawfully, like, matter of fact, let's do it like this. I'm going to look up something in Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary, by the way, if you don't know, Black's Law Dictionary is basically what all law, because a lot of people, everybody in the world actually uses the UCC in some way, shape, or form, right? So we want to go to Black's Law Dictionary, especially if you're doing business, right? So Black's Law Dictionary, let's look up the definition of minority, because that's pretty simple, right? Now, this is going to be talking about within UCC or within, trade or within, modern law, et cetera, right? But we'll just look up this term. Minority, according to Black's Law Dictionary, is the state or condition of a minor, infancy. It also can be the smaller number of votes of a deliberative assembly opposed to the majority. Okay? So when you're talking about minority, you're talking about the condition of children, right? Or you're talking about a smaller number. Okay? When we talk about so as far as legally, sure, you're talking about the condition of a child, have they been messed with physically, emotionally, etc. If you're talking about as far as outside of just a courtroom, you can be talking about a small group of people, but basically it said the same thing. At the end of the day, though, even if there's a minority, now if you're talking about a vote, which once again goes to this series, once again is called Having Been Led as We Believe. So if you're talking about a vote, which a lot of people go to in a thought process, just because in the world, if you believe in voting, you believe that as long as a certain amount of people outvote you on something, it means you have to live by it, right? But that's different because we believe in Radah Shemayim, we believe in Elohim, but also what? The kingdom, Radah, the kingdom of Elohim, right? It's a different mindset. So somebody would come and argue law with you or talk about minority because they believe that, hey, if you're a minority, then it means you shouldn't be listened to, which is why we have some of the arguments we have. Because people will be like, well, you're the minority, so you should shut up and listen. Your language is a minority, so you should shut up and listen. Your race, if you will, is a minority, so you should shut up and listen. In the kingdom, though, we believe everybody should be listened to. We believe that everybody should test out what we say, right? Whether you're in the minority or the majority. And so Ashley said fruit of the Spirit is defined in the Old Testament, each word previously defined. I don't, okay. No problem with that. I don't believe in Old and New Testament, by the way. That's something somebody made up recently in time. When I say recently in time, the last few hundred years or so, there used to be no such thing. So, but I get what you're saying, though. The Torah, the word, it simply is just repeating what it already said because it's law and case study. That's what your Bible basically is. It's going to be law and case study. You said, I don't teach color to my children. We don't see change, race. When we get tan on vacation, that isn't real. Okay, true that, but racism is a system based off of something that's not real, which means it's become people's reality. And by the way, what was Yashra'al talking about to the woman at the well? Right? So this is why, and I'm not going to get super deep in that because the first session that we did, everybody wants to just talk about race and race and race so much that they forget that racism is a demonic thing, right? And the worst thing that we can do is ignore it. Yashra'al didn't ignore it. He said it's not meat to give, to give the scraps to the dogs. Right? He was testing somebody because why? She was a Samaritan. She's supposed to be a half-breed. What was her response? Well, even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. What did he say? Woman, great is your faith. And he proclaimed it in front of everybody. What about the woman at the well? Right? Samaritan woman, supposed to be considered a dog. The disciples came back and were shocked that he was talking to this woman. And he told her that if you knew who I was, if you could look, I am Yashra'al. I will tell you the truth. We are the chosen people. We know what we talk about. We are connected. You're not really connected. However, it doesn't mean that the kingdom of heaven can't be in you. And it doesn't mean that I won't help you to turn into somebody that preaches the word. He did not ignore something. He spoke about law. He spoke about something that protected rights, but at the same time, he said it protects your right as well. See, and people are afraid to have that conversation that the law protects rights, but I'm not here, even if I discuss black, white, and whatever, I'm not here to focus so much on black, white that we get messed up where we don't recognize that law can protect anybody, including those that would be grafted into Yashra'al. Right? That's not my goal. That's not the mission of this. That's not, because we're talking about having been led as we believe. And the Bible does not give us that belief. Now, people who are arguing from that point, you might be arguing about somebody who's not me, but or even in this community. Once again, it's having been led as we believe. So somebody will be quick to be like, well, you're black, you're Hebrew, you're an Israelite, therefore you believe that. No. You're taking somebody else's belief, right? And trying to move it. That's not my belief. You said race isn't real, or you meant race is real. Somebody said there's no racism. Okay. There's never been a system in place, and there's not people that benefit from something that has said that white people are on top, black people on the bottom. Never been. And that's okay. That's your belief system. That's not my standard. You'll hear me say that quite often. That's not my standard. If that's what you believe, that there's no such thing, and you shouldn't see, especially when we talked about that yesterday, when people say they don't see color. Okay, so you don't see a part of me. Well, that's not what I mean. Well, then what do you mean? You need to speak, right? Because every word has something that you mean, right? Death and life is in the power of the tongue. Those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. How you apply it will cause the fruit that you get from it. So if you're going to be somebody who's going to be around me and tell me that you don't see a part of me, you need to figure out a way to make that make sense. Because I recognize a word, and every word that's uttered, it has an effect. It has a manifestation behind it, right? That's law. We can possibly talk about your rights being violated by the court if you want to talk about United States. I talk quite often about United States citizenship versus the citizenship in the United States of America. Because we're talking about law, we'll probably talk about substantive law and procedural law and remedial law. Some people don't even know what we're talking about. These are things, these are steps, right? Even the system that's in place, even when it gets perverted, they still have to follow a certain order. They have to have natural law at top before they can even get to substantive, procedural, and remedial. Then before we can even, and we have to get to substantive before we can even get to a place of talking about public and private and all those things, right? So we got to talk about law. We might talk about law for a few days. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to comprehend that law protects rights. Even the Constitution says it like this. It says that you have unalienable rights. What does that mean? That you cannot be separated from your rights. In other words, there's no such thing as an immigration towards rights. There's no such thing as somebody's alien from rights. Everybody has rights. The question is, are you righteous? Do you do things that make sure it's done to protect all of creation, to protect all of humanity, to protect the kingdom of heaven? Or do you do things to where you are just simply trying to be right? Because there's a difference between being right and being righteous. Somebody can have the right to make fun of somebody. Is it righteous to do so, though? No. Somebody can have the right to say that being a Republican or a Democrat makes you closer to God than somebody else. I hear people say that. By the way, I don't believe in God. I believe in Elohim, because God is a whole other deity. Nevertheless, I get what people mean. So they'll say, Republicans talk about God, but they do this and they don't believe this and blah, blah. Or Democrats talk about God, but look at how heathen they are, blah, blah. You hear people say that all the time, as if Republican or Democrat makes you more righteous. You can have the right to be a Republican or a Democrat, but what does it have to do with you being righteous? That just means how you vote. And in the kingdom, we don't vote anyways, because our law is established by somebody who goes above these politicians. Now, do we render Caesar's things to Caesar? Sure. However, we do what? We give Elohim's things to Elohim. And we see, and he sees it, that he might receive and give us something we can see that we might receive. For those of you who are aware of what see and receive mean, right? You said in law, they say that you can't make decisions for yourself if you refer to yourself as a minority. Well, that as well, which is why I don't refer to myself as a minority. Matter of fact, on paper now, I have no problem as far as saying, like, yeah, you know what, like, I'm indigenous, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, etc. Right? At the end of the day, though, I'm not on paper, I'm a natural man. On paper, I'm not a citizen of the United States. I'm a non-citizen nation. So forget minority. By law, I'm not even part of the system. I have no contract with this system. The Black Star edition, I think I just read, I think that was the 4th edition, if that's what you were asking. Ashley says, doing nothing can also be a transgression, right? Just staying still and doing absolutely nothing, which is why faith without works is dead. Somebody can have faith and say, I have faith that all human beings are one thing. Okay, well, where are your works to prove it? Right? Got a lot of allies that talk about their faith and that we're all one. Where are your works to prove it? Right? And I don't want to get, we're getting away from, I want to focus in on law in general, right? We're going to focus in on Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20 today, a sweet spot for us. And we've been here for a while. Nevertheless, we want to make sure that people comprehend. Ben said, why do people spread misunderstanding about you? What is the misunderstanding? I don't know. Righteousness literally means doing what's right, since it's been changed. But righteousness means what? To be within right legal standing. If you're not doing what is in right legal standing, then it's not righteous, right? Like right has become a different thing. Right is power. Everybody has the right to this power. Everybody has rights. Everybody has free will to do what it is that they would like. Everybody has rights. That's where that term comes from. We're talking about legal terms, right? Everybody has a right to do whatever they want. And once again, this is having been led as we believe. This is the kingdom. This is a kingdom mentality. This is a Ofori mentality, or what somebody might call a Yashra'al mentality, an Israelite mentality, whatever. This is not the same mentality a lot of people bring to this. So I'm not here to necessarily, unfortunately, I'll explain as much as I can, because this is trying to explain what we believe. Yeah, amen, Minister Nice. I see you on there. Not my standard either. So it's not my goal in this to make sure that you have to agree with everything. My goal in here is to present something and for you to hear it or not. So a lot of people aren't necessarily going to listen to it. They're going to tell me why it's this, that, or whatever, and I apologize. I'm not going to be able to answer as many questions as we can, because obviously there's going to be something that's going to mess with a lot of people's head, and a lot of people get emotional. A lot of people are going to not hear what I'm saying. They're going to start, defining what I'm saying before they hear what it is. It's fine, right? We talked about that. There's fine, it's intact. There's define. We got to break down what's intact and make it something, try to figure out how to make it something else sometimes to help us to make it fine again, to reset the bone, right? The bone is fine. We break the bone to try and set it back in place, so that we can say it's stronger than what it was. And then there's redefine, where people just keep breaking the bone over and over and over again and keep trying to set it in place. I'm going to tell you what's fine as far as our culture. And then, if we need to, I guess we can define it, but I'm trying to present it as fine. Right? Because I believe that our culture is fine the way it is. I believe that our word is fine the way that it is. He said, why are we still paying taxes? I don't. And you shouldn't either. But you got to make sure that legally you're allowed to do so. If you legally have been signed or have signed your rights away, and you keep dealing with benefits and privileges from a system, lawfully you should pay taxes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not mad that people pay taxes. I'm not mad that people don't pay taxes. If you feel like you want to pay something, then, or if you feel like you want to keep being part of a system that tells you are, then keep doing it. Yeah, you can still use credit and all that. Matter of fact, you should have great credit if you feel like it. If you don't feel like using credit that much, then don't worry about your credit. You said, how do you not? All you do is you make sure that you're not in the contracts. I'm not a United States citizen. I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm a non-citizen national, and I live as such. I don't do anything that should be taxed. And if I do anything, like if I do go to a store to buy food, I get taxed there at the store, right? So I don't have to pay taxes later on anyways. But you can discharge debt, right? A BOE, bill of exchange, right? You have the right to be able to do it at any time. Matter of fact, if people are getting on you about certain things that you don't want to pay, you don't agree that you should have to pay and stuff like that. If a creditor comes, a creditor had to buy your debt. So people that are afraid of creditors or whatever, all you do is send them a cease and desist. Now you got to know how to do it. That's why we teach classes on this stuff, right? You have to know how to do this. Some people are just like, I'm not going to pay. Well, first of all, you don't have to pick up the phone. Don't be dishonorable. The second that you're dishonorable, you've already messed up, right? Don't pay anything. If you started paying, if you got a $500 debt, if you paid 50 cents, they're going to say, they started paying 50 cents. They entered in the contract, right? It's an implied contract. If you sign, there's all types of stuff. But once again, we're going to deal with law. We're focusing on Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. I want to show you how crucial this thing is, right? Matat yachav he, I guess we could say Yao Zion, through Kaf, right? We would say Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. You said you have to pay all your debt. You might have to pay all your debt. Right? Look up HJR 132, I believe it is. Am I saying the right number? Please forgive me if I'm not. HJR 132. HJR 132. In 1933, the United States of America came out with a law and said that if you are in a position where it comes with public debt, now private debt's different, a little different, right? But especially when it comes to public law, if you are dealing with something public, that's state, that's government, if you're dealing with something that's a debt and you need to discharge it, it says the United States of America will discharge your debt for you, or you can discharge your own debt, that's your power to do so. And then it says what? After that, when you discharge that debt, it says that you can actually, the government has to pay it off for you. So there's law to protect your rights. You just don't know. And that's why we give classes on this stuff. So, but we got to get to law. I apologize. It's very easy on these lives to go to so many different places or whatever, but people don't want to think about those things, right? Bankruptcy can clear you of different things as well. It depends on the route you want to go, right? But bankruptcy, that limits you because you're bankrupt, but you're having to still deal with certain things as far as the law, right? I'm talking about you could just discharge debt and have it come off your books. And if they try to do something to your credit, understand that creditors have already bought your debt. So it's a bill of exchange going on when you discharge your debt. So if a creditor comes to me, says, hey, you owe money on something. First of all, money's not real because there's no gold or silver to back up money by law, by the Constitution, that every dollar that you have, like let's say you have $500 in your pocket right now. $500 means that you should be able to take out, you should be able to basically take, $500 and take it to the United States government and say, I want $500 in gold right now, because every dollar you have is a promissory note. So if you have $500 in cash, you should be able to go and say, give me $500 in gold, give me $500 worth of silver right now. That's what I want, right? And they don't have it. And since they don't have it, it's not real. If you were to go to your bank and you were to say, I want $10,000, I saved up $100,000, I just want 10,000, 10% of it, a tithe. I just want 10% of it, right? As soon as you do that, right? You ask for $10,000, they'll say, oh, it's going to take us a couple weeks. A couple weeks? Why can't you just go in the vault and get? We don't carry cash like that. You don't carry cash. Yeah, and even if we did, we can't just give it to you. Well, why can't you give it to me? Well, we actually take your money. We don't keep money because it's not real. So first thing we do is we send it out. We invest it in a bunch of different things. Because think about that. The bank doesn't even use savings. They don't even save your money. They tell you to put your money in savings, but they don't keep your money in savings. They take your digits, because that's what you're doing, swiping that card. They take your digits and they push it to something else. They use what you think is might as well think of it as cryptocurrency. They have it go through a virtual thing to where they try to get it to invest, or they invested. They try to get as much money as possible. And what they're saying is after a couple of weeks, then they'll make sure that they can give you a small percentage of what they made off of that 10,000 you're asking for. That's why if you get into a car accident, it could be a Geico to Geico car accident. Well, why does it take so long for you to pay me what you owe me? Well, Geico doesn't have money. Geico took your money and they spent it because they know money's not real. So they spent it to try and invest it so that they could get some real stuff, and then they're going to give you a small percentage. You just want some money. Here you go. Here's some chump change. They comprehend how currency works. Currency, if you look up the definition of currency on Google, you'll find real quick that currency just means that you got to agree on what it is. Okay, I don't know if I'm saying this right. DYZIGTN, former banker, I'm speaking truth. Yeah, thank you. Like, this is real. This is why we teach this. This is why we classes on this stuff. Like, this stuff is real. A lot of people have never been introduced to this. They don't teach you business in school, right? I'm sorry. Somebody else is saying the volume is low. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. I don't know if maybe I need to go and do some work on the mic. I got different devices I use, so I'll try and check the mic and see what's going on with it. I apologize. I don't know if I'm coming across as loud enough, etc. Right? Some private schools do, some private schools don't. You'd be surprised how many people go to college as well. They go to school all this time in college and stuff, and they don't comprehend how to discharge debt. Never heard of it. But yeah, if a creditor buys your money, we're going to get to Matthew 5:17 through 20, I promise, right? But if you go and you try to, what was I trying to say? Yahweh help me. Oh yeah, or Ruach HaKodesh help me. Amen. If you go to, what was I saying this for? Oh yeah, so if a creditor calls you, the creditor had to buy your debt in the first place. A lot of people don't know about that, right? So basically, what you have to do is the creditor has to buy your debt. So let's say you owe Sprint, right? I've been there, done that long time ago. I've been done with Sprint since like the early 2000s. But let's say you owe Sprint. Sprint is doing you dirty. They say that you paid them. You're supposed to pay them $100 a month. Somehow they turn it. This happens to a lot of people, right? Well, I got all these hidden fees. Well, it's just a one-time thing. You got to pay $250 this month. $250? I'm supposed to pay $100 a month. Okay, fine. Then, you got to pay extra. You got to pay what's coming up, and you're actually behind, or what you're doing is you're paying ahead to cover what you're going to get. Okay, so you pay that, and then finally gets to a place where it's like, well, hold on, how am I 500 behind? I keep paying you guys. Well, this and that. Then you start getting, so you say, I'm done with y'all. I'm finished. I'm returning my stuff for Sprint. I'm turning my phone, whatever. I'm going to go with somebody else. Right? Sprint gets mad. They start sending you these letters. Start doing all this stuff. And and you say, no, I don't agree with you. I'm done with it, blah, blah. First of all, even when they send you the letters, here's a little hint for you. I'm not going to go through all the stuff because we got to get to Matthew 5:17 through 20, right, to establish what law is. But here's a little hint for you. Right, since a lot of people are asking some questions, just to put this at rest real quick. All right, here's a little hint for you. You ready? And thank you for the likes and the shares and the gifts and all those things. We appreciate it on all the platforms. All right, here's a little hint. If they send you a letter and there's no signature on it, especially if there's no name, but if there's no signature on it, right? If there's no person's name on there or no signature on it, no electronic signature, etc., it's not even a legal document. I need you to comprehend, like, you got to know law. This is why when we get to Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, it's going to be real crucial. You're going to get why I'm talking like this. Shalom, Brother Tracy. How you doing, right? So, but a lot of people don't comprehend law. So if creditor's sending you something, or they're not even at the creditor yet. Let's say Sprint is sending you all this stuff, and they're saying, we're going to threaten you, and your credit's going to go down, and you better pay us or whatever. You ignore it. You say, I'm done with Sprint, whatever. I'll take the hit on it. I'll pay it back later. That's our mindset. I'll pay it back later. Not I'll discharge the debt. Our mindset is I'll pay it back later. A lot of us have been there, done that with certain things, right? Okay. So you're done with Sprint. However, you're not done because you get this letter from a creditor. And the creditor says that we're working on behalf of Sprint to be able to make sure that you pay this debt off or whatever. We've been hired by Sprint. They're lying to you. May I say that again? When you get a letter from the creditor saying, we're calling you, hey, Pastor Hamilton, I was just talking to Big Brother Thomas about you, man. I was like, man, all this stuff happened and we had to restart on all the social media platforms. I was like, I lost his information. I'm glad I had you on there, man. If you can, DM me your number again, please. We're getting ready to start doing some men's stuff. We're going to meet together, men's meeting on December 29th on Zoom. I want to make sure I got your information. I'm so glad to see you on again. Appreciate you, fam. So, I'm sorry, I got excited, saw my brother on here. So, we're in a position where we don't comprehend and we don't think about the fact that these people are lying to you. If a creditor is coming to you, they don't come to you on behalf of another company, because the creditor can only call you and have your information if they bought your debt from somebody else. You said, yeah, but if I owe money, isn't that legal grounds to take me to court? Hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Give me an opportunity, right? About to answer that question. Right? Now, there's a difference between public law and private law. So home stuff is a little different because that can be private. Car stuff, for example, technically is supposed to be public, but a lot of courts will treat it as private. So you get into every situation is always going to be its own situation, right? However, I want you guys to just hear me on this, right? Hear me on this. Because a lot of us get lost. If somebody who's a creditor is calling you on behalf of another company, the creditor is not calling you on behalf of another company. Catch what I'm saying? The creditor is not calling you on behalf. Now, you have to find out if it's a creditor, because sometimes they might be, say they're a creditor, they might be somebody who's just simply a smaller version of the other company, which means they're still part of the other company. But for the most part, a huge majority of what you guys are dealing with, you're dealing with a creditor who had to buy the debt from another company. See, we think that the creditor is going to get paid because they get our debt plus some interest now, so that they can get paid and they can pay Sprint back in this, in this example we're giving. That's not how it works, right? You need to be a lawyer. Well, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not on the bar. I'm not even. This is just. This isn't even quote unquote legal advice, right? This is me just making sure that I tell you some things that are legal. Okay. Right. That's why sovereignty is huge. That's why they tell you to be away from sovereignty. They want you to think that it's a terrible thing, right? Because you have to understand law. You have to live by law, not just as far as that, not just as far as your money. You have to live by it holistically. You got to be able to take care of yourself, have your own food. That's when you become sovereign, right? When you can take care of your family out of what you have. That's a king. That's a queen. We're supposed to be kings under the king, queens under the king. So watch this. So if a creditor is calling you, they had to buy your debt, which means your debt is paid off. Well, please don't put I'm definitely not Jesus, and I'm definitely not Yashra'al. I appreciate you talking about that. We're talking about what Yashra'al actually talked about, though, for real, for real. I appreciate it, but that's not, or I thank you for giving me a compliment. However, that's not what I'm definitely going to stay clear of that, if you can understand why in our belief system, please. Nevertheless, when you're talking about this stuff, no. If you do things that are harmful, or if you're making fun, if you're telling people they're stupid on here, image, you will be muted, or you will be blocked. Now, if it was me, I don't really mute people on here. So if it was me, I promise you. So you're right to say as a moderator, but the moderators have a right to block you if they want. And really, we have an opportunity. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and block you. That way you won't have to worry about it, because there's no point in that. So if you are on here, it's not about difference of opinion. You can state your opinion. If you're disrespectful, we will make sure that you're not on here. Okay? That's all we're going to deal with. So we're not dealing with that, because as you can see, this is Kofi_43. We've literally and legit had people who lie about us and stuff like that. So we have to be very protective so we can have this place to be, all right? Grand Rising Savannah. But anyway, let me finish this up so we can get to Matthew 5:17-20. We're doing a great job outlining law, but we want you to understand. See, a lot of people don't comprehend law, so your rights are signed away all the time. So what happens is the creditor is bullying you, and they keep trying to coerce you into paying. But the creditor has already paid off your debt. And here's another thing you don't know about the creditor. The creditor, at the end of the year or whatever cycle they're going through, the creditor will receive whatever it is they want from you. They'll get it automatically anyway. So they're trying to double dip, right? They're trying to get you to pay twice on something. They paid for it. They're going to get their money back regardless, but they want you to pay them as well so they can make money. Like, understand, if a creditor, like, why would somebody start a company if all they're going to do is just basically pay, they're going to get your money and then give it back to whomever the company is they represent? They're not making any money, right? So that's not what's really going on, right? They paid for your debt. They know they're going to get the money back, and they're trying to get you to pay on top of that, because that's when they actually start to make their money. When they get the money back, that's when they get it zero. So you're going to actually pay them plus interest so that they can not only make what your debt was. They're trying to flip your debt. They're trying to pay for your debt, know they're going to get it back, then flip that into, now you're going to give them what they paid for, what they got back. And so that means they're at zero right now. Now you're going to pay back what it is. So you're going to pay them instead of paying the company, and you're going to pay interest, which means you're going to give them extra. That's how they make their money. That's how what their business is off of, right? But you can basically, discharge your debt instead of paying off your debt. All you do is you say, look, I know you as the creditor. This is when you write the letters that you're writing, right? You basically are writing to them saying, look, I comprehend how this system works. I know you as the creditor, you're going to do it using different words and phrasing than what I'm using. Nevertheless, this is what you're basically doing. You're saying, look, I understand how a bill of exchange works, and this is going to be my bill of exchange I'm writing out. You, as the creditor, already paid off my debt, which means I'm not in debt. So you as the creditor, since you paid off my debt, I know that I'm not in debt. Secondly, I know that money is not real, so you're asking me for something that's fictitious because there's no gold or silver to back it up. We're both aware of that. Thirdly, if you paid off my debt and I know you're going to get paid back later on, then that means that you're asking me to pay you back for something that you already paid off, and something that somebody's going to help you to make up for that you already paid off. So you do not need me in this equation. So what I do is I exchange my debt. I have a bill of exchange. Since you're saying you want to pay off what I owed to Sprint, I'm going to go ahead and sign that off to you because you already paid it off for me. That's what you're selling them. You already paid it off for me. So since you already paid it off for me, I'll go ahead and just sign off and say that I agree with that. You paid it off for me, and hey, since it's your debt now, you paid for it, right? You paid to be able to have this debt or whatever. You paid Sprint. I didn't ask you. We don't have a contract, right? We never made a contract. You and I, you as the creditor, and I as the debtor, never came together and formed any kind of contract, implied or otherwise, that says that this is something that we agreed on. So since we never agreed on this, I know that Sprint says I owe them money. And by the way, I told Sprint I never owed them in the first place. That's why I stopped paying them, and I was prepared for whatever penalties came with it, right? And to deal with those consequences. And even if it took us going into court or whatever, I was already prepared to do what was necessary to discharge that debt and make it known I was going to pay that. You decided to pay off Sprint so that you could try and get something from me that I never agreed to with them in the first place, let alone have we even agreed on. So you know what? I discharged the debt. Since you paid it off, I'll go ahead and agree that you paid it off. That's all you're saying. Since you paid it off, all I'll agree is that you paid it off. Can you tell them that on the phone? You can, but you don't even have to answer the phone. And if you do answer a phone and you find out it's a bill collector or something, you know all you have to do legally by law, all you do is you pick up your phone. You pick up your phone and you basically say, hello, this is so-and-so calling, blah, blah. Oh, you know what? I can neither confirm or deny who this is over the phone. Click, and you're done. Or not click anymore, right? You press the button. But you get the point, right? Like, so that's discharging that. So people don't recognize, like, that's, like, when you pay in a creditor, right? Now, you got to know private, public, and different things. That's why we give classes on it. It's not always that simple. There might be some extra steps, but that's basically what's going on. Is somebody who's already paid your debt off is saying pay me instead of pay them. But if you paid them, then what am I paying for at this point? Because you paid off what I owe. That's the only reason you have the right to have a conversation with me, is because you paid off what I owe. So see, lawfully, they're following law. They can't contact your creditor's not going to contact you until what? They have the righteousness or the right legal standing to be able. Yeah, it's not clicking anymore, right? But they have the right legal standing to be able to call you. They can only do that because what? Because they paid off a debt. When they paid off your debt, it meant that now, since they paid off something for you, they can contact you. And they're trying to get you to agree, to give permission to them. And really, they're not even getting you to sign something, right? If you sign anything, that means that you authorize it, right? However, they're trying to get you to pay. If you pay, it's implied contract. It means that this person paid. Since they paid, they agree that they need to pay me. If I don't pay you anything, I never agreed to a daggone thing. And that's why even if they try to mess up your credit and you were to do absolutely nothing about it, after 7 years or so, I think somebody brought this up earlier, after 7 years, it disappears off the books, right? After 7 years, it's gone. It'll be completely gone and wiped away. Why? Because it was never real in the first place. But they're going to hold on to it as long as possible, hoping and praying that at some point you're going to break down and say, all right, I'm tired of having this. It's been 5 long years. Hang in there 2 more. Right? It's been a long time, man. My credit looks bad. I can't get this house that I will hang in there. Or just discharge it if you don't want to go through all that. You said not with student loans? You can discharge debt with student loans. Look up UCC 6611. Question for you. When they gave you a loan, and after this, for real, we got to go to Matthew. We got to go to Matatya, right? But after this, we got to go and make sure that we get this. And Holy Spirit's telling me, like, it's great that we're here, but she said that we were sitting here a little too long. But when somebody gave you a loan of any kind, by the way, right, unless it's private loan is different than public loan. But if somebody gives you a loan, question for you, did anybody ever put money in your hand? Or was there ever any gold or silver that you were given? If you weren't, then it means that the loan wasn't real in the first place, of any kind. Right? Now, once again, you should be honorable. If you agree with somebody, if you agree that you're going to pay off a loan or do something like that, if you started paying on it, if you knew, be honorable, right? But if somebody starts to try and be dismissive or rake you over the coals on something, oh, no. Like we have stuff like even UCC 1-308. It protects me. It protects my rights. Once again, I have unalienable rights. Right? But righteousness is when it comes in. So I have the right to be able to do whatever. I have the right, if you want, you have the right to go into debt. However, be careful about debt. We would always say, just in general, try to be careful about debt. Why? Because debt is slavery and slavery is debt. Period. What constitutes a slave? A slave is somebody that's in debt. What constitutes somebody that's in debt? A debt is somebody that's a slave. If you're in debt to somebody, you're a slave to that person. Right? Proverbs chapter 1 verse 3 says, teach them about equity. Right? Proverbs chapter 22 verse 5, everybody loves that. Train up a child in the way that they should go, so when they grow old, they won't depart from it. Question though, what does the next verse right after it say? It says that those who are, that the system is set up that those who have are always going to be over those who are have-nots. I'm paraphrasing. But those who have are always going to be over the have-nots. Therefore, since that's the case, teach. Make sure that you are never the lender, right, or never the borrower, and that you're always the lender, because the lender always has power over the borrower. All right, now put those 2 verses together, Proverbs 22, 5 and 6. You've never heard anybody teach you these 2 verses, or a lot of you never had somebody put these 2 verses together, because you get context without facts or facts without context. Put the context and the facts together. Put those 2 verses together. What does that say? Train up a child in the way that they should go, so when they get old, they will not depart from it. Therefore, you're training up your child to be a lender and never a borrower, because if they're a borrower, they will be in debt and they'll be a slave. But if they're a lender, then they'll be in a position to where they will have power and authority. That's what that's saying. So when they say train up a child in the way that you should go, everybody's always talking about, so they believe in the word. That's not the context. Even though, yes, train up your child to believe in the word. Train your child up to be a great human being. Train up your child to be able to decipher what the word of Yah says. Train up your child to speak Paleo Hebrew and whatever other languages that you feel they need and all that stuff. That's great. Train up your child to be in tune with their culture. But it's saying train up your child to make sure that they are not in debt. Because the second that they're in debt, they're a slave. That's why you pay taxes, because you're a slave. I know you don't want to hear this, but if you pay taxes, it's because you are connected to something that says that I get benefits and privileges. You know who else gets benefits and privileges? People who are put in prison. Can you receive a personal prayer? What is the personal prayer about? Or you just want me to pray in general? And I think we missed with somebody yesterday, even though I prayed for them afterwards, but I think we were supposed to pray for them on the live. It said real Taylor bangs, if you want real quick. So why does it stay on your credit report 7 years if they paid off the debt? Because they're trying to get you to pay off the debt. They have it set up, but they can't have it go past 7. And that, by the way, everything, see, even if you don't believe in the Bible or not, it's all coming from your Bible. They just twisted some of the law, right? And understand that's their culture. Their culture is to take the Bible and twist it. Right? But at the end of the day, you got 3 branches of government, because the Bible has three: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Why do you need 2 witnesses, right? When you get your witnesses, or if you get your affidavits, why do you have that? Because you have to have two or 3 witnesses, right? Why, et cetera, et cetera. But 7 years in our culture, after 7 years, if somebody's an indentured servant, right? That means that there's somebody who's agreed to work for somebody else, then it can't go past 7. Statute of limitations, yeah, that stuff too. It's my pleasure, Black Lion. Yahuda, how you doing? Yahudach, excuse me. In general, okay, let's say a quick prayer in general, and then we're going to get into Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. Matat Yachav, Yaud, sorry, Matat Yachav, Yaud Zion, At, Kaf. All right, so, and sorry, it's still weird for me going back and forth between English and Paleo Hebrew. I'm trying to get used to it, doing more and more of that, especially since we're going to start teaching basic Hebrew in January. I need to have my stuff together to go between English and Hebrew better. So we'll say a quick prayer, and then we're going to go ahead and go into that. So Heavenly Father, we have a couple people that have asked for some things. Somebody asked for prayer in general. Somebody said they're dealing with the loss of a husband. We thank you and we're grateful that we had this opportunity in this time right here to be able to go to you and leave it at the altar. Our prayer is that if we can help in any way, shape, or form, that you use us to be a vessel for that help. We also simply just ask that they be able to let go whatever's necessary. We know that it's hard. We're not saying it's easy, but whatever needs to be put at the altar, we bring it to the altar, and we don't pick it back up to try and bring it with us. We pick it back up and we burn it at your altar, that it might be a sweet, it might be sweet smell unto your nostrils. And we thank you and we appreciate that you're coming to be able to answer what our prayer is. So we leave it here. We thank you. Ooh, I feel it. We thank you for what is being burned up, for the wickedness and the lasciviousness and the doubts and the depression and the frustration and even the bills and all these different things that are there. We leave them right here. And we thank you that you're teaching us about your law that protects us from those things. I also ask for protection as thy servant over this word and over even myself as the vessel and my wife as well, since we are one as the vessel to be used, to be able to make sure that we get this word across. It's in the mighty and matchless name of Yahweh that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect this prayer and this message together. Amen. Amen. All right. So, Matat Yachav, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. Matter of fact, I got this pretty much memorized, but we got this here always just in case you need it. And thank you for those who agreed with the prayer. You said never the tail, but the head. Amen. And sing it right. So we're going to get ready to go into this word. Amen. Yeah, Minister Nice, that 7 years thing, that's the truth, right? And charge offs, by the way, and all that stuff, right? But we don't recognize those things. But that's why you have to think of yourself as the master. The master is the teacher. I don't own anybody, but I am a master of people because I am a teacher. There's a difference, right? So you can be a slave owner and a slave master. The slave owner was having a problem. That's why they brought Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch said, y'all got to stop just owning people. You got to master people. So you can, when you master people, he said, and you own them at the same time, he said, what you do is you take the body and you keep the mind. My goal is to just be a master of my environment, and anybody wants to come into that environment and be taught within it, so be it, right? There's a difference. It's cultural. So, even when people hear words, oh, you're talking about mastering their, yeah, it's cultural. What's a master in my culture, right? Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Christine. What is a morach? People don't even know what this stuff is. So, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, right? And this is going to just back up everything we've been talking about, and it's going to take us a little deeper. Once again, this series is called Having Been Led as We Believe, and we use that because anybody who's been around, if you look up, even if you were probably Google Having Been Led as We Believe, what you'll discover is that there are a bunch of hymnals, right? And these hymnals have in the beginning of it something that will say, having been led as we believe. And then you're supposed to read this to say what you believe and agree with it. And oftentimes, usually like once a month or at communion, and a lot of places still to this day, they read that to be able to re-inform people what they believe. So this is us doing that, especially as we've come back on TikTok fresh now. We're trying to make sure that we tell people and ensure people and let people know, hey, if you're dealing with us, if you're going to be part of Yah's Land Project, if you're going to be part of the men's stuff, the women's stuff, you want to call it ministry. We don't believe in ministries. We believe there's only one ministry. Nevertheless, people call it men ministry, women ministry, children ministry, whatever it is. These Hebrew holy days that we do, classes that we do when we come together in person as we're coming to everybody's town, et cetera, et cetera. We do things having been led as we believe. So this is what this series is going to help with, right? And we've started loading that on YouTube. We got part 1 on there. This is part 3, so we should have part 2 and part 3 prayerfully by the end of the day uploaded for you all right. And it's on Facebook as well, and the podcast as well. IG has some of it as well. All right, so here we go. Having been led as we believe. I'm sorry, Milk said, Kofi, when you get a chance, please send my fiance the info for the father and son. Sure, if you can, if you haven't texted me already, if you don't have that information, we'll try to put it up later. But just if you can, DM me as a reminder. And I'm trying right now, since I've got more time than I've had in a while, I'm trying to get back into the habit of checking our DMs as well. So if you want to DM me, if you don't have our information yet, or if you don't have our email or any of that stuff as of yet, you can feel free to make sure you DM us, and we'll make sure that we get that stuff to you all. Okay. And also, I realize it's been a while, so I can't even remember. We had like tens of thousands at one point every day we were dealing with, so it's been a while. So some people we've just got lost in coming back into what we've been doing, right? All right, so Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. We're going to deal with these. These are 4 points when it comes to law. And by the way, this is not me speaking. This is Yashra'al speaking, who people call Jesus, right? The Christ, Mashiach, the Messiah, right? So this is him speaking, right? Cristo speaking, right? So if he's speaking, then we should probably listen to what he has to say. This is on the Sermon on the Mount, our sweet spot for quite some time now, right? And if you want to catch up on that, we have the Sermon on the Mount series on the YouTube channel, which is hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. All right. So, but this has been our sweet spot for quite some time, because this is Yashra'al giving what many people would call the most important sermon of all time. Like this is his sermon. And so he started off in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, saying that he needed to go. He went all the places in Galilee, preaching what? The kingdom. And he preached the kingdom so that he could deal with sickness. And after he could deal with sickness, he was able to deal with dis-ease. And after that, then he could start taking demons out and doing all this other stuff, right? Exorcisms and all that. Shalom, Sister Sonia. How you doing? So this is what we're dealing with now, right? This is what we're dealing with now. So here it is that Yashra'al is preaching kingdom, right? And he's preaching kingdom throughout what? Throughout all the world, okay? Or throughout all Galilee, rather. And it says that his fame got caught up in people, not just in Israel, right? Or not just in Galilee either, but all over Israel, all over parts of Africa. Now we would call some of those parts the Middle East, but all over parts of Africa, all over the world, some of the Greeks and everybody that live in Israel and even around Israel, Samaritans, people Samaritans maybe not as much, they'd have to hide who they were to follow him, but nevertheless, people are following him from all over the place. And he sees this going on, and he sees that people have heard what he's preached, they've seen what he's doing, and they say, okay, we need to follow this guy. And they're following him. So he sees it. It says he goes to Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, says he sees him following him. He goes to a high place. He goes to a mountain. He takes him. He says, we're going to go up higher, physically and spiritually. Right. I don't know who Dr. York is. I apologize. So physically and spiritually, we're going to go to a higher level. So what does he do? He goes up to the mountain. And he sits down. Everybody else more than likely would have been standing up, because that's how you preach back then. The person speaking actually would have sat, and everybody else would have been standing around. So he sits down and he begins to preach. He begins to proclaim. The word preach just means to proclaim. And he begins to talk about the kingdom of heaven, but he goes deeper into it, right? So the kingdom of heaven, or blessed to the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. Excuse me. So what is he saying? He's saying those who have been told that you're not as versed, you don't know as much, your prayers aren't as good, you can't quote as many scriptures, blah, 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 blah. He says the kingdom still belongs to you. He starts shifting the paradigm. My spiritual father would say he was flipping the pancake, right? People believed in the word, but they didn't believe the word applied to them, because the religious leaders taught them something different. So he starts saying, man, if you're humble, man, blessed are the people that are humble. You're going to inherit the earth. Stop worrying about when you get to heaven, right? When you get to heaven, every day will be Sunday. He said you should be in the kingdom right now, right? And the kingdom's in you, and you should experience some great things right now, right? He starts talking about that. He starts even saying things like, man, blessed are you when people say all manner of evil against you and revile you for my name's sake. That's my reputation. So if you're speaking things based off of my reputation and what I've taught you and things, and people get upset with you, he says, man, you should rejoice and be exceeding glad. They did the same thing to the prophets that came before you. right? After that, then he says, what you are the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. He says, what good is salt if it loses its savor? You might as well just throw it out there and let it get trampled on, right? And a lot of us get trampled on because we don't do what we're supposed to do with salt, right? So he says, like, make sure that you got yourself together in this, that, et cetera, the third. He says, and don't forget that you're a city set on a hill. He said that can't be hid. So don't be upset when they're looking at your life to try and see everything that you do that's wrong, because you can't be hid. Once you out there, you out there, right? Like, once I'm out here and I'm talking about what I am, now people are going to pay attention to my marriage. Let's see if this dude is about what he says. People are going to look to see if we actually do give the stuff out that we give out. Let's see if he does. People are going to see, oh, are they going to get that land in October? Let's see. He's been talking about that land. Let's see if they get it, right? Like, this is what they're going to do. They're supposed to look at you, right? Amen, Chantrell, right? So they're supposed to do those things. Then he gets to, after all that, then he gets to Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. 4 points that you got to remember, right? First point, Matthew 5:17, is this one, right? I'm gonna just go through them real quick, then we're going to backtrack and spend some time in each one. First point, Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. He says that, don't think I came to destroy the law. This is who speaking? Once again, this is who speaking? This is Yashra'al speaking. This is the Messiah speaking, right? This isn't, oh, this is just Old Testament stuff you don't have to listen to. This is Yashra'al. This is who you say is your savior. This is the one who you said only 2 laws matter and all that stuff, right? This is who you guys talk about, right? If you want to call him King Jesus, whatever it is, this is who's speaking, right? Some of your Bibles, this is written in red, right? Because we know who this is speaking. So this is not me coming up with this. This is not my authority. This is not just what I felt like speaking on today. I didn't write this out. This is who you believe, right? Once again, having been led as we believe. So those of us who agree that Yashra'al is Lord, or some people say Yeshua, Yahushua, or Yahashua, etc., Yahavashai, right? I'm not here to argue about that stuff. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. We can bring that up a little bit later on in this series again. But I'm talking about, we agree that this is the Son of Elohim, right? Who has been manifest, right? By the Shiits, right? By the Shiits, right? By the Shiits, Genesis, by the Shiits, John chapter 1, right? We believe this is the same person speaking. Right? People used to say in church, Mary's baby boy, right? This is who is speaking. Okay. So what does he say? Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. First things first, he says, hey, I didn't come to destroy the law. I came that it might be fulfilled. As a matter of fact, if you take it into proper translation, it translates more along the lines of this. Do not think that I've come to overthrow the government by destroying the law. However, I have come that the law might be fulfilled. That's actually a better translation. But let's just go by what people know. Do not think that I've come to destroy the law. However, I've come to fulfill it. That's the first point. The second point comes from Matthew chapter 5, verse 18. He says that you should not change one jot or tittle when concerning the law. Now, what does that mean? Jot or tittle. Jot means the most minuscule of measurements. So even to the smallest degree, the smallest measurement, you shouldn't change it. And tittle actually means the way that it's written. Matter of fact, tittle translates to the Hebrew character or word even, which is yod. And yod actually means the hand of Yah. If you guys remember from yesterday, I don't have my little whiteboard with me. Actually, I got the whiteboard. I don't see my marker. If I find my marker, I'll try to write some stuff on here again. But if you remember, we talked about yod yesterday. Yod is the hand of Yah. The hand of Yah. It's the beginning of the word Yehovah. If you look at Yehovah, the first character of Yehovah, right to left, that's the Yod. And that Yod means you should not even change the way that it is actually written, right? Or the hand that guides it. So the hand that guides it must be in tune with what has always been there. That's what it's telling you. So we shouldn't change one jot or tittle. So the first point, Matthew 5:17, he didn't come to overthrow the government by destroying the law. He came that it might be fulfilled. Second thing we're going to focus on, Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, don't even change the most minuscule of measurement or the way it's written. Who is this talking about? Hey, Shalom Ak, Shalom Malak, how you doing? Malek, excuse me. I don't want to use the other term. Right? Why? Because we shouldn't change one jot or tittle. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. Once again, who is this speaking? This is Yashra'al, Yeshua, Yahavashai, etc. Right? Whatever Yahushua, etc. Right? This is who this is speaking. Now, what does he say right after that? Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. What does he say in Matthew chapter 5, verse 19? Right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. He says, oh, and by the way, those of you who preach that you should not obey the law, and that you don't, and you teach people, or I'm sorry, you do not, rather, let me make sure I get it correct. Those of you who do not obey the law and teach other people not to obey the law, you are considered to be the least in the kingdom. Those of you who do follow the law and teach people that they're supposed to follow the law, you are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom. That's Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. Who spoke that? Yashra'al, Mary's baby boy, the son of the Most High, right? The Messiah, the Christ, Christos, etc., 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 right? So who spoke it? The Most High, right? Who spoke it? The Most High. One more time, one more again. Who spoke this? The manifestation of who? Of the Father who was on earth, Aleph Bates. All right? Thank you, Shabbos. I appreciate it. You must have read my body language. All right. So then finally, after that, right? If you want to call him Jesus, fine. We're talking about our culture, haven't been led as we believe, but nevertheless, that you get who I'm talking about. And then finally, in verse 20, what did he say? Matthew chapter 5, verse 20. He said, and you need to know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. I'm breaking up where you are as well. I don't know. If I put it on my 5G stuff, whenever I go to TikTok and I'm on 5G, whenever I go to TikTok on 5G, basically like it's on my whatever, on my you know what I'm saying. I'm having issues, so I apologize. I'm trying my best. Might be location, I don't know, but it says that I got full signal on both ends, and I'm still having breakup issues, so I apologize. It's really a TikTok issue, and I'll leave it at that. But nevertheless, right, we're gonna get this. Oh, I found the Sharpie. So remember, I was talking about the hand of the Yod, right? So when it says don't change one jot or tittle, and it says Yod, it says you can't even change this. The Yod, right? The Yod. Why shouldn't you change the hand or what is written as far as the hand of Yah? Because if you change the hand of Yah, this is what happens. If you change this hand of Yah, then you're actually messing with Yahweh or Yahweh or Yahweh. All this, people say. So if I change this, I'm changing the rest. Don't change what the master, the ruler of all, the creator of all. If you try to change the beginning of who he is, then you change everything. That's what that's actually talking about culturally. Right? Yeah, I know somebody, that's why I said I'm not here to argue that, because some people are going to go by the W or the double V sound. Some people are going to go by the U sound, which actually didn't exist until after, Israel was speaking, let alone when Israel developed language. Nevertheless, though, I'm not here to argue that. Hopefully everybody understands what we're talking about. And it seems like you understand enough to know what it is I'm talking about. So if you want to say it's what, that's fine. I'm not here to argue that today. All right. And I know some people say you got to argue every single little thing, but that's why we can't teach anything, because we're stuck on that. So if we want to have a little thing where we just talk about that only, we can talk about that only some other time. Right. But even when we're dealing with this stuff, understand, like, so for example, in modern Hebrew, they'd hit you with this and they say that this is Yod. Now, when you change does this look like a hand in any way, shape or form? And I know there's people that even say, oh, that's not ours either. Okay. Like, but I'm trying to just get you to see something, right? So if I change this Yod to what's now modern Yod, if I change that, do you get the same thing out of this? So he's literally saying we should not even change the way that it's written. But that's the second point, right? I just wanted to bring that up because I spoke on it, and I wanted to make sure you guys could see what I'm speaking on, right? And not just what I'm speaking on. Who's speaking here once again? This is Yashra'al. Doesn't look like a hand to you? Well, that's fine. That doesn't need to. That he that has an ear, hear what the Spirit saith, right? Right? Nevertheless, that's what it's supposed to imply. And if you're saying that it doesn't look like a hand, then obviously the other one looks a lot less like a hand, does it not? It looks like an apostrophe or a comma. So we would still be in the same position that what we're talking about, right? So at the end of the day, and it's an arm and a hand. Thank you, Sister Tracy. She's taking the class, so she knows what I'm talking about. I apologize. Maybe that was a bad teaching. It looks like an arm and a hand, but somebody would still say, oh, it's very crude. Yeah, it could be crude. Not everybody's an artist. It's like, for example, I can't draw, so I'm going to try my best. It's like when you have this letter A here, right? And you have Aleph, right? But you also have some people that would draw Aleph more like this, and I can't really draw, so I apologize. Right? This is all Aleph, right? Now, this is the letter A, but this is, what I draw as far as Aleph, which is the beginning of our Aleph beat. Some people would draw it more something like this, right? But this is, this is saying the same thing. A, that you draw, when you put it on the side, the two lines that go across, those are the ears. The two lines that go up past the head, the triangle is the head. The two lines that go past that, those are supposed to be the horns, right? Others would write it like this. At the end of the day, like this Aleph, this is basically you're dealing with like cursive and manuscript, kind of. You're kind of dealing with the same thing, even though it's not exactly like that. And I know somebody's ready to argue. That's why I said we can't teach everything, because some people are going to get to a place to where we're not going to be able to get into the word, because they're going to be so fixed on, oh man, I don't agree with every single letter that you wrote out. Okay. Like, that's why, once again, it has to be a place of having been led as we believe. We didn't come across this stuff randomly, right? Oh, that she was saying that Jewish Yao doesn't look like a hand. Okay, I apologize to whomever that was. I apologize if I came off as wrong. Or actually, I was wrong in that regard. Thank you for the correction, Minister Tamara. Oh, it was Ms. Mack. Okay, I apologize. I thought it was somebody else. I apologize. Had I known it was you, I probably would have known that that's not how you intended it. So, Matthew chapter 5, going back to Matthew 5, verses 17 through 20, which is our focus right now, right? Matthew 5, verses 17 through 20. Matthew 5, 17 through 20. So the first part of it is concerning the law. Who's speaking again? Once again, who's speaking? Right? Who is speaking to us? It is Yashra'al. Right? This is who's speaking to us. All right? And so Yashra'al, the Son, the manifestation of Abba, Aleph Bates, the person who was in the beginning, Badashit, all these different things, right? He's speaking to us. And when he speaks to us in Matthew 5:17, first thing he says is what? Do not think that I came to overthrow the government by what? By destroying the law. I didn't come to destroy the law. So now we get into a different thing, or not a different thing, but we have to have a different part of this conversation. Because how is it that people have tricked you and deceived you into believing that when you go and drive, you should stop at a red light, but when you go and follow the word of Yah, you shouldn't obey law? Right? We have to have a different part of the conversation now. How is it that people have been so deceived to believe that they should obey law of man, but not obey law of the Most High? For example, people who don't believe in the Bible will tell you and I we should follow universal law. Yeah, it's reverse, right, Sister Tracy? People who don't believe in the Bible say that they don't have to obey universal law, or that we should follow universal law, and that universal law is where everything comes from, right? And that really the universe is, well, they don't say Elohim because they know that's not the right culture, so they say the universe is God, which is a whole different deity, right? So when they say those things, you have to start asking them, once again, we've made this very clear. Oh, thank you, Nzinga, for being on. Appreciate it. And we're on every day, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern New York time. And on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. But on the Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays in the evening, we're not on Facebook or IG. We're on, at least for now, we're trying out Big O Live. So if you want to follow us on TikTok or whatever, just look in the description box. You can see what the name is on TikTok. We'll try to make sure we're always on TikTok as much as possible, right? But people don't understand what a universe is. We've talked about this plenty on here as in recent times, because a universe is what? A universe is uni, and the word verse is a spoken sentence. So you can't talk about the universe unless you talk about somebody who spoke a single sentence into existence. That's what a universe is. That's what the universe is. Right? That's what that's what the universe is. They're telling you that the universe came out of a big bang. Right, but our Big Bang had to be somebody who could speak something into existence, because that's what a universe is. How can you talk about universal law and you don't even know what a universe is? Okay, until all is fulfilled. Question, has all been fulfilled? You're right. We need to put that in there too. So the question that we had to put on there is, so if, okay, we should not, uh, we have to make sure that we understand that not, that the law has, he didn't come to destroy the law, but that it might be fulfilled, or until all is fulfilled or whatever. Actually, let me just read it the way it is, because I feel like we're getting into different parts of the verse. But either way we look at it, the question is that, because that's something that you definitely have to study. You're absolutely right. Let's bring that up. So Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 to 20. We're at verse 17 right now. Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. It says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets, right? So the people that came before me, that wrote before me, when people say that's just Old Testament, the prophets, they are included in that, right? So think that I am come not to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. So in the verse that I'm talking about right now, we haven't gotten to that, because verse 18, I believe, right? Yeah, verse 18 is going to say not to change the jot or tittle until all has been fulfilled. So if you want to talk about changing it, that's different. But in this first point we're talking about, Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, we're talking about we're talking about that do not think that he's come to destroy what the law is or what the prophets have said before him, but right, he's come to fulfill it, right? And once he's fulfilled it, right, are you saying, does that mean that once he fulfilled the law, does that mean that all is fulfilled by him, or is it talking about that all is fulfilled prophetically? Because he's still going to talk about in Matthew chapter 25, which talked about in Revelation chapter 4 through 12 and 4 through 13, 4 through 20, if you want to go there, right? So so is the context, hey, when I fulfill the law, that's it and nothing else matters? Is that the context? See what I'm saying? I knew we were going to go there. I was hoping we would go there a little later. Nevertheless, let's hit it up now, right? So when he says, I'm going to fulfill the law. And by the way, question, even in context, at this point when he's speaking, has he fulfilled all the law? Even when he's speaking, right? He doesn't fulfill the law until he dies, right? Because when he came back, and it depends on the context, see, because some people actually believe what the Bible teaches, which is that even though there might have been 600 plus laws that were written as far as in the Torah, we believe that a king, when he speaks, anything that he decrees is law. Therefore, it must be established. And it must be established by it being fulfilled. So anything that the king speaks is law. That's why he said, I give you a new commandment. John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35, right? That you love one another, not according to the way you love, but you love one another the way that I've loved you. By this, men will know that you are my disciples. That's lawful. So the law states, if you want to know somebody's a disciple of the Most High, how do you treat each other, Israel? How do you treat each other, disciples? How do you treat each other, people who know about my word and are in the kingdom, right? So when we're talking about that, sure. But is that, so some people would say, well, there's only 613 laws. Well, question, then is why are we obeying the 614th if only 613 count? But then somebody will say, well, there's only two laws that matter, when he broke down the 10 commandments into two laws, right? He did Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, focusing on the first 4 commandments, and then he did the next 6 commandments, focusing on your neighbor, put them together, and said all the other commandments, the other 613, so to speak, hang on those. But some people will say, well, then he only said 2 laws matter. So is that law 614 and 615, or we just established John 13? So does that mean there's law 614, 615, 616? You see what I'm saying? In our culture, whatever a king declares, it's law, right? Like the whole Bible is law. The whole Bible is case study. The Bible is nothing but law and case study, right? The Bible is law and case study. Matter of fact, if we're going to go off of this, are we going to talk about the fact that we usually don't bring in the other, the other books outside of the 66, because it's the book of Jasher, or the book of Yashra'al, or Yashra'al, excuse me, but we call it the book of Jasher. The book of Jasher says that if you're a brother in this thing, especially if you're going to be a ruler or a king, David says this in the 66 books, you need to make sure that you're reading the book of Jasher. That's law there as well. Is anybody going to talk about that law? Right? He had to fulfill that too. Our belief is not that he just had to fulfill 613 laws. He had to fulfill everything. right? As far as what was there. So are you saying he had to fulfill the 613? Once he fulfilled the 613, then now he fulfilled everything? Because then that means that there's some stuff in here that's not in the 613, especially if you believe there's a New Testament. You see what I'm saying? So it's the context. We're talking about a lot of stuff. We're talking about facts. What you say it is facts, but where's the context? A lot of people talk about context, but where are the facts? Faith without works. That's context and facts working together, right? Not everything's based off of facts, but or nothing's based off of facts alone, and nothing's based off of context alone. But you got to put the two together. So I'm with you that it does say, yeah, in the next verse that we're going to, that you have to make sure until all is fulfilled, or until all be fulfilled, right? But it says what? One tittle, one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So are we saying that it's only 613 laws? Are we talking about everything? By the way, when he comes back, he's coming back to fulfill something, correct? See, our mindset is not eternal. Our mindset is just trying to make sure that we work out whatever our faith or our amen or our aman is, or our faith is. So since we believe that our faith has to be this or whatever, or it's about works alone or faith alone, or if the Old Testament doesn't matter, if the New Testament doesn't matter, like there's all people trying to use all types of things. The reality is this is holistic. To be holy is to be whole, WHOLY, right? To be holy, to make sure that you are not double-minded, because the second that you're double-minded, it means that you are divided, therefore you don't have vision. You have division, right? And that's what's happening with all these different religiosities, right? Amen. Thank you very much for that. Hope prayerfully it is profound, because we're given the word of Yah, right? And it's the proper context. We keep speaking about this stuff outside of proper context, right? So when he comes back in Revelation, who's coming back to fulfill this stuff? Is it the same Yashra'al who's speaking now, who's going to die on the cross? Which means when he died and he said, it is finished is a particular it. But it doesn't mean that all is finished, because if all was finished, he wouldn't have to come back in Revelation. And if all was finished, he wasn't going to have to allow Satan to come out after all those years that he's going to be imprisoned and then be allowed to come out again. And then he's not going to have to throw hell and all that into the lake of fire. Right? If all is finished, when he said it is finished, he was talking about what? He is a door. So the fact that we had no Holy Spirit, we had no doorway to heaven, and that we had basically all we were going to be able to do is deserve hell, and that was it. Right? No, I'm not a Christian. Right? But the fact that all we were going to do is we got to go to hell. Right? That was what was the problem was. It is finished. There's nothing dividing us anymore. Why? Because even the veil was ripped. Right? Lightning strikes and the veil is ripped in two. There's nothing that's separating us. That's why Paul says, what can separate you from the love of Elohim? Nothing now. The only thing that can separate you is you, yourself, and you. The only thing that can separate me is me, myself, and I. Right? Nothing. Or maybe I should say like this, you, yourself, and thee. If you know the difference between the thee and the you, right? Me, myself, and I. There's nothing that can separate me. You said, is God a religion? First of all, God is a false deity. God is different than Elohim. He's different than Netres. He's different than other deities that exist. I don't worship God. I worship Elohim. Secondly, religion is something that everybody has, even if you don't believe in the Most High. Religion just is something you do repetitively as a legion. If you drink coffee, you repetitively drink coffee, because a lot of people do that. If you go for a run, you repetitively go for a run. So I'm not concerned about your religion by itself, and I'm not concerned about your Elohim or your deity by itself. I'm concerned when you put the two together. That's why we talk about context and facts, contextual facts. That's our standard. That's why this series is called Having Been Led as We Believe. This is what we believe. You don't have to agree with it. If you like to be about God, then worship God. That's why God can be whatever you want him to be, or what you want her to be, or what you want it to be, because you can turn it into whatever you want. But that's not what I believe. I believe that there is a being who created everything, the universe. Once again, what does the word universe mean? A single spoken sentence. So you can't live in a universe without somebody who could speak a single spoken sentence. If you believe in multiverse, it means that you believe in multiple spoken sentences. Nevertheless, even multiple spoken sentences came from somebody who started a single spoken sentence. So when I'm in the universe, I'm in a conversation. That's why I have to, in our belief structure, that's why I have to make sure that I speak well. And by the way, only 7% of my communication is verbal. So 93% of what I do all day, it speaks to the Most High. We have conversation in everything that I do. So that's why law is there to protect me, because if I want to have proper conversation that allows me to be in a king's presence, because you can't just roll up on a king. So if I'm going to show up in the king's presence, I've got to make sure that first I'm worthy of coming before the king. You can't just come in the king or a queen's court and think that you're going to do whatever you want. They won't let you in front of the Queen of England unless you get through all the rooms to get to the Queen first, right? Like, you have to know how to be proper, how to be royalty. You have to learn how to be able to respect the culture before you can get in front of the Queen. They don't just let anybody in front of the Queen. And by the way, even when you get to the Queen, she doesn't have to respect you unless she feels like you are respectable. So, yeah, when we're talking about that, we're talking about a different culture. That's why we talked about the last couple of days before this. Culture is everything. Your language is culture. The clothes that you wear are culture. Thank you very much, Sister Sharice. That's pretty. I haven't seen that one in a while. Thanks for the love, and thanks for the likes and everybody who's giving it on the multiple platforms. We appreciate it, right? So what a king or queen, you can't even get before a king or a queen before any royalty unless you're worthy of it. The royalty then, and really, a lot of times the royalty asks for you. The royalty knows you're coming in advance, or at least the people that serve the royalty, they know you're on your way. You can't just randomly show up. You have to be worthy of the royalty, right? You can't just randomly show up. You got to be worthy. This is lawful, right? So the first point, going back to the first point once again, is that think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come to destroy. I have not come to destroy, or I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Right? So I've come not to destroy law, I've come to fulfill it. That's my goal. So first things first, when somebody tells you stop worrying about law, Yashra'al was worried about law. Because he said, don't think, because he said, and once again, a better translation is, do not think that I've come to overthrow the government by destroying the law. So if I destroy the law, I destroy the government. Why? Because we're talking about the jot and tittle, not one word. Right, heaven and earth shall pass away, but what? Not one word of this law shall pass away. The second that this law passes away, right? The second that this law passes away in your life, it's the second that now the kingdom is not what it's supposed to be, because Yah cannot lie. He cannot lie. He cannot lie. So if you believe that he said something here, but now he no longer wants you to worry about it, it means that you're saying that he really lied, because eternally, see, stop thinking about time. Yah is not in time. He is in time, but he's not of time. Let's say it like that, right? So he's not of time. Before time existed, before seasons existed, he was there. And so the same law he uses today is the same law that he uses tomorrow, the same law he's going to use the day before tomorrow. And by the way, what that really is talking about, what that's really talking about is what? Is that it means that before there was a yesterday, it was law. And it means after there's a tomorrow, there will be law. That's what it means. That's what it means. He said when Amazon fulfills an order, they deliver that order. Fulfill means to deliver. Okay. And who's being delivered? Through following the law. Who is he going to deliver? So how do you get delivered if you don't follow what he delivered? And you don't deliver to others what he delivered? We can change it into the modern terminology, or what Strong's Concordance, or what somebody else would try to take it, which they're coming from a different culture too. They're coming from a Greco-Roman culture when using the word. Nevertheless, we can go to that as well, right? At the end of the day, in order to be delivered, or to carry into effect, thank you very much, right? In order to deliver it or carry it into effect, because that's all you do in the delay is carrying it from one place to another. So fine, until I carry this law that's in eternity into time, and now teach you guys so that you guys can have an open door to carry yourselves from time back into eternity, I have to do what? I have to fulfill. I have to do what it says. It has to have some effect. Right? Thank you very much, right? And that's what we're doing. I'm sorry, where there is change in priesthood, there's change in law. Hebrews reads Romans 7:8. Okay, what's the Roman road say? Romans 1:11. I'm writing this that you might be established. Romans 3:23. Well, I won't even get into that. Check out Roman road if you can. Romans 1:11. All needs to be fulfilled. Romans, right? So or established. Law needs to be established, right? Romans 3:23, or you can say you need to be established. What's established in you? Law. Romans 3:23. Wages of sin. All of us. The wages of sin is death. No, I'm sorry. All have sinned and fallen short. Right? So lawfully, all of us deserve, if it wasn't for law, all of us deserve death, period. Right? Romans 5:8. But Yashra'al commended to demonstrate his love to us that while we were yet sinners, he died for us, right? Things like that, right? Romans chapter 6, verse 23. The wages of sin is death. So you deserve death, but there's a gift that comes through what? By somebody fulfilling law. The gift of Elohim is eternal life, right? Romans chapter 8, verse 1. Therefore, because of that, the law makes sure that you therefore have no condemnation. That's law. The law protects you so that there is therefore no condemnation for those who follow after the spirit and not after the flesh. That's why there are certain laws that don't even need to be in place, or there's certain rights that you have that you don't need law, because law protects rights. So you don't even have to have law for certain things. So people are having this argument about law, or like this and that, or it changes law, this and that. Okay, so what law has the Most High changed? Like you see what I'm saying? We're getting to a weird place. Romans 8:11 says the same spirit, the same one, not changing it, but the spirit that can remain consistent, that raised was able to be consistent enough to raise Yashra'al from the dead and wants to live inside you and make you alive. Romans 8:19, that people are waiting for us to manifest as the sons, not the creatures. It says the creature or the creation. So there's a lot of people that are still considered to be creatures lawfully and legally. They're trying to catch this thing about the word, but it says those of us that are the sons of Elohim, they're waiting on us to manifest. They're waiting on us to actually do what we're supposed to do. They're waiting to actually see if somebody will follow and obey what it is that the word of Yah says and see the consequences, see the great things, see the stipulations, right? Anything that's true, it comes with stipulations legally. What are the stipulations that come? If you follow the law, are you blessed and highly favored? You keep saying that you are. Well, does it happen? If you pray, what happens? If you are faithful, what happens? Right? If I do not commit adultery, right? Let's go to some basic law. If I don't commit adultery, what will happen in my marriage? If I am not coveting what other people want, will I be happy? Right? If I don't steal from somebody, what will happen? That's Romans 8:19, right? Romans 8:28 then says, even people who have broken the law in the past, if they start getting under law, all things work together for the greatness of Elohim, for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Right? Romans 10, we could go into Romans 9, where it talks about that not everybody, once again, who says that they believe in Christ is necessarily a son of the Most High. Just because you're a human being doesn't mean that you're a son of the Most High, right? Then we can go to Romans chapter 10, verse 9 and 10. Everybody likes that, but see, people don't want to be inside law. You want to do whatever you want, because people say, well, you got salvation, but time out. Romans 10:9 says you'll be saved if you confess and believe, right? And the proper name, too, by the way. But Romans 10:10 says what? After that, your confession and your belief, and you're being saved still means you're on your way to salvation, which means you're not in salvation just because you're saved. Salvation means a place you've arrived at because you've been salvaged. So you can be rescued, Romans 10:9, but you still got to go through a process. And Romans 10:10 then says what after that? Righteousness. Righteousness being what? To be in right legal standing. To be right means that you have the right to do it. To be righteous means that there are consequences that come to what you do. So there's certain things that you have to make sure that you are in right legal standing. That's what law does. Law allows you to make sure that you are in righteousness. A lot of people say, I have the right to do whatever. Yeah, you have the right to kill somebody, but righteousness declares, and me will come with that and say, okay, if you kill somebody, the righteousness of Elohim is that your life is required. That's why, right? If you make fun of somebody, you have the right to make fun of somebody, but righteousness requires that the same stuff you're saying about somebody is what the Most High will judge you by, right? Because before we get into Luke 6:38, give and it shall be given unto thee. First it says Luke 6:37, judge and you shall be judged. How you condemn people is how you be condemned. And if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. Now, however you give those things, it shall be given unto thee. He's talking about law. But once again, we're talking about having been led as we believe. This might not be for every matter of fact, it is not for everybody. Not everybody has an ear to hear this, or not everybody has to agree. Or maybe you feel like I don't have an ear to hear what you feel like your spirit needs to say to you. I'm just simply telling you what we believe. Having been led as we believe. So if you believe that laws have been changed, you have to just simply tell me what laws did he change. And people will go and then people go to the places like this that don't even make sense. They'll say, well, We don't have to give blood sacrifices anymore. Does that mean that there's not a law for people who give blood sacrifice? Or does it mean that since Yashra'al came, you don't have to give blood sacrifices? You know, the Bible never says not to give blood sacrifice anymore. It just says you don't have to. I don't give blood sacrifice. I don't believe that I have to, because I believe Yashra'al died and he's greater than any blood sacrifice I can give. It does not mean, though, that there's not a law that says if somebody wanted to go ahead and do blood sacrifice, you got to do it in this manner. It didn't go away. It just means that you don't have to do it. So when it, and by the way, when they say terms like the law is of none effect, it didn't use the word none effect, right? But that's as close a translation as they can get in English. So it doesn't mean that law has no effect. If law has no effect, then you wouldn't keep bringing up Mark chapter 12, verses 20 to 34. Which expressly talks about about how people try to say, oh, he brought all the laws into two. So if you believe there's two laws, then you still believe that law has effect. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy. I haven't seen that one before. Appreciate it. Right? Lady said delivered, meaning it was given to a people, and that people is us. I mean, I'm not mad at that. Do I believe Jesus is God? I believe Jesus is exactly what that name means when Pontius Pilate put it on the cross. It means half man, half Zeus. I believe that Yashra'al is one with Abba, and they're one with Ruach HaKodesh, and all three work together as Elohim. Elohim is different than God. God is from a different culture. God is a Germanic deity. Right? So when you talk about God, you're talking about something different, even if you are doing whatever, right? I want to see if I'm learning from someone who knows the truth. Right? What does Jesus means half man, half Zeus. So why would I believe in half man, half Zeus? He said, is it not written in your law that ye are gods? Okay. So is it not written in your law that you are Elohims? And even that word God in Germanic language, English, not Anglo, but Anglish. Not Anglo, but Anglish, right? You see the difference? In Anglish, where they have a lot of different languages that came together because they were taken over by a lot of different people. And they go back to stuff even like Charlemagne, who was doing some falsehood stuff when he was doing stuff, right? But when they say you are gods, they change the thing, right? It's like if somebody goes to Kemet, you don't call yourself a god in Kemet. Even if you're a pharaoh who's saying you're a god now, you call yourself a Netjer. It's a different culture, right? It doesn't mean the same thing. Nevertheless, if you're talking about in the law where it says, do you not know ye are gods, even in English, it would say with lowercase g, right? Make it a point to say you're not the same as the Most High, right? But also Elohim, the Elohim can be used in different ways, right? For different things. It's about context. So yes, there's a fact that it says, do you not know you are gods? But culturally, it's not talking about what you're talking about. Yeah, the only law that's really done away with is sacrificial law. And even if and once again, if we're sons of the Most High and He is Elohim, then we would be lower Elohims, but we would still be underneath Elohim, right? Like my father, who is not the one who art in heaven, but the one who art on earth, and this Aretz is Asase, he is still here. I'm his son, etc. Right? So he is Ofori, I am Ofori, right? So if somebody were to say, hey, if my father were to come to me and say, hey, you represent me, son, remember, you are Ofori. You remember who you are. You remember who you are. If he were to say, you are Yashra'al, because my name, Yesu ben Yashra'al. So he'd say, you are Yashra'al. Remember who you are, right? If he were to say that to me, he's not saying you have the authority that I have. He's speaking to me as saying, because of where you come from, I'm telling you, reminding you that I authorized you when I birthed you, that you are supposed to carry on that authority, right? So because I passed something down to you, you are what I am. Never forget that, right? You and I are interdependent. However, we are not one and the same. So yeah, I definitely comprehend that which we speak. Once again, though, that's having been led as we believe, right? So, but people are going to argue that all the time. Half man, half Zeus. Yesu. It was Yesu. Iesus or Iesu. Iesus is Greek. Iesu is it's talking about the phonetic Greek, and Iesus is talking about Greek phonetically. Iesu is talking about Latin phonetically, both meaning half man, half Zeus. That's where that comes from. Am I subscribed to the idea that he only came to the Israelites? Once again, if you listen to us long enough, you'll be able to hear us say this stuff. I've said it like several times already today. Nevertheless, one more time, I'll say it just so you can hear it, I guess. And if you want more information, we have series and different things. You can actually look at what I have to say. It's kind of hard to defend every single thing that I believe in, and it kind of takes us away from teaching because we can't focus on what we're supposed to. Nevertheless, though, I believe that Yashra'al is what the Bible says it is. If I were to go and say it like this, let's go from the Roman road to Revelation road. Revelation 2:9 talks about the fact that there are people who feel like they're downtrodden, they feel like they're hurt, they feel like they're not rich, but they really are. They've been told their whole life that they're nothing. And there are people that say that they are not Israel, even though they really are Israel, right? And the people that say that they aren't are really the synagogue of Satan. Nevertheless, it says that those people are who Yah says that they are, and we are Yashra'al. If we keep on going, don't get caught up in that. Listen for a bit. Hear me out. Revelation 3:7 comes behind that and says that Yashua HaMashiach, who people call Jesus Christ, he says, Yashua makes it a point to say, Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, that I am holy and true, and I also am the son of David. I come from a lineage. The same lineage that mattered in Matthew 1, the same lineage that mattered in Luke chapter 3. I come from a lineage, right? You know, Kendrick might say something along the lines of I am from the 70, right? But I come from a specific lineage. And that lineage, by the way, still means I died for all, because all bloodlines are represented in my lineage. Right? So, but still, I come from a lineage. There's a reason why I'm allowed to be the king of earth and the king of heaven simultaneously. Why? Because I died for everybody, but as a sacrifice, I died coming from a specific lineage, right? My father in heaven that I'm going to make sure that you know about is Yahweh. My father on earth, who I'm going to keep bringing up over and over again, is David. And because you know both, you know who I am, right? So Revelation 3:7, he says, I make that clear. So because of that authority, Revelation 3:7 and Revelation 3:8 talk about the fact that he can open doors that no man can shut, and he can shut doors that no man can open. He's in a legal position, a lawful position to be able to do those things. Then in Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, he then comes back and says what? He says, so understand that you guys are going to hear that you're not the people, and you're not what you're supposed to be, and how dare you say all these things or whatever. But he said, understand, those are still that the people that people are looking up to and people that come against it, they're still considered to be the synagogue of Satan, right? And he says, I'm going to have them sit at your feet as if you were Elohim yourself, right? Because you are lower Elohims. So they're going to see the Elohim in me, and they're going to be willing to sit at my feet. Sit at your feet means what? To learn from somebody. So once you learn from somebody and you sit at this person's feet long enough, then what becomes the next part after that? Then he says also too, I'm going to show them that I have always loved you. However, let's not stop there. Let's not stop there, because we still have to be fair, right? We're not saying that he only loves Israel by itself. And I've never said that at all. And I'm not saying that. Let's keep on going down the Roman road, because he said, I'm going to show that I've always loved you. Why? Because people have been saying that Israel is not loved at all, and somebody else should be loved, right? But he didn't say he has no love for anybody else. But let's keep on going. Revelation road. Now we go to Revelation chapter 7. There are 4 angels that are about to bring destruction to the world, and they're holding back the 4 winds. You get to this 5th angel that shows up and says, up, time out, hold everything back. Don't let it loose. Don't let it loose yet. Because why? He has to make sure that Israel is sealed. And that's the rest of, reading on in Revelation chapter 7, right? So once Israel is sealed, does destruction come? No. Because still, after Israel is sealed, then people that are grafted in, right? Is that 1 Corinthians chapter 11? Somewhere around there, right? The people that are going to be grafted in, right? Revelation chapter 7 starts talking about that now, because Israel is sealed and in its rightful position. Sealed meaning that the king is putting his seal of approval on who Israel is, because they should have always been that. They got away from who they were, and now they're coming back into knowledge of who they are. Now, once they are sealed, what happens? Now others who are grafted in can start to be sealed as well. They can start to become into the kingdom as well through Yashra'al, because that was always the deal. That was what was promised with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and so on and so forth, right? So this is what's going on in Revelation. Then even in Revelation chapter 12 comes back after that and says, so therefore Israel needs to come together. And anybody, therefore, once Israel comes together and establishes being together, because Satan is mad because he can't get to Yashra'al, who's on the right hand, who's at the right hand of the Father, a place that he can't get, Satan can't get to. So now what's left? Now what's left is he's looking for anybody and everybody he can that's a remnant of Israel to get at. Right? He's not just coming at you just because you're against him. He's coming at you because he's angry and upset that you're tied to something that he can't defeat. So it says that this woman, Israel, in Revelation 12, is supposed to make sure that she comes together and takes care of herself and is separate from everybody else. It says that she should find a place to live where nobody else is there, so that we can stay away from Satan, who is putting together through men in Revelation 13, this beast or this government that's coming after people, this Antichrist spirit, that is the spirit of Nebuchadnezzar or Nero, that's going to go ahead and keep on trying to attack people to a place to where he's trying to get them to obey things and have to be under the mark of Satan rather than the tov or the mark of the Most High. Right. But real quick, because we're about to lose, I don't know how much longer we have our podcast. So it looks like we only got them on for about 15 more minutes. So let's just make sure we go through these four points. And I know I can see comments are popping up. So let's go through these points real quick again and finish these points up. Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. So I didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets that came before. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. Right. And by the way, it doesn't even say to fulfill law, but we obviously can see he's talking about the law. Right. OK. And this is right after you said, letting your light shine. So my light is shining on what? The law. If I'm fulfilling the law, I'm shining light on what the law is. I'm reversing the curse. You guys have thought that the law means, once again, going back to Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, the kingdom of heaven doesn't belong to people who are poor in spirit or don't believe in what you believe in. No, the kingdom of heaven belongs to you if you can get yourself together and be in the culture and get this thing correct. That's what he's talking about. Matthew chapter 5, verse 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or tittle, it shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Right. And until he comes back and gets rid of Satan, then it establishes things to where even hell and Satan and the demons and those who decide that they want to be against it, all that's thrown into the lake of fire. And then even the lake of fire itself, I believe, if I remember correctly, is going to be thrown into the sea of forgetfulness and all that, until we get to a place where all that's happened. All has not been fulfilled, even if you're just going by the 66 books, right? Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. Third point after that, it says what? It says, whosoever therefore, so therefore means because of what he just said. So whosoever, because of what he just said, shall break one of these least commandments. What did he say? Which commandment? Because, you don't have to obey all commandments. That's what you're saying. The law changes. Wait a minute. He said, whosoever shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men, so he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So in the kingdom, they look down upon people that say don't obey law. That's what Yashra'al is saying. And by the way, he's supposed to be the person who's one and the same with the Father, came from heaven, was in heaven before earth was even created, was in the heaven of heavens before heaven and earth underneath it was created, right? That's what he said. I didn't say it. That's what I'm saying. I've chosen to believe what the Most High said. Having been led as we believe, I chose to believe just simply what he wrote, what he spoke. Matter of fact, he didn't write it, right? He spoke it into existence and then spoke about it to the people that exist because he spoke them into existence, if you caught that. So he said, anybody who shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so if you breaking it and then teaching other people it's acceptable to break it, he says in the kingdom of heaven, they look down upon you. He said, however, right? And so somebody's going to try to find a scripture to go against that. But you believe this is the master teaching. This is the master of masters. So the context should start with him. Right? That's why you got denominations, because he's not your denomination. And in a fraction, you have a numerator and a denominator, right? I don't know if I have my marker. I found it. Right? You have a numerator and a denominator in a fraction. This is why people in the kingdom can't get along and can't do things together. Right? The only reason why that 1 plus 1 equals 1 is because 1 over 1 equals 1. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on the top is the numerator, right? And I'm sorry, I might need to flip this around. I didn't hit mirror image earlier. So the only reason why 1 over 1 or 1 plus 1 equals 1 is because 1 over 1 equals 1 over 1. I'm sorry, I said 1 over 1 equals 1 over 1. Excuse me. I was thinking times in my head, but let's just do plus. I can add, I'm sorry, y'all. Right? All have fallen short. Right? So the only reason why 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 equals 2 over 1 is because it's over 1. The denomination is the same. It's the same. The reason why you got all these denominations is because that you can't agree on what Yashra'al said. Yashra'al and what he said, what he said should be it. So over him is why you get it. So that's why people look at Christianity and say this stuff don't add up, because what you want me to believe is that somehow, some way, you can change the denominator, right? So you can say that what was originally there can be changed into whatever you want it to be, and somehow, some way, I'm supposed to get the same outcome. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're trying to tell me that the original that gets me to the destination of eternity is supposed to be added up with just anything that I want. I can make it look similar on top, but the reality is it's founded on nothing. That the master says, right? And here's Yashra'al himself telling you, who should be our denominator, hey, look, man, if you break one of these least commandments and teach people it's okay to break it, right? Like, you can break a commandment, but hey, if you break a commandment, ask for forgiveness. Right? Don't just teach people, oh, you know what, I messed up, but it doesn't matter because I'm the righteous. What? No. Like, you might have a child that's doing something where they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Say, hey, I don't agree with what my child is doing, but I'm still going to love them, right? Like, you don't just teach people it's okay for what they, like, we do some weird stuff. Your mom and your daddy doing some wild stuff out there, your spouse or your girlfriend and boyfriend doing some wild stuff, but because you want to protect them, you just say, oh, yeah, well, whatever they do, I'm rolling with them no matter what. Like, no, like, if they're doing something wrong, you say, look, I might not agree with it, but at the end of the day, that's my wife, right? And I'm still going to protect her. He might not be doing what he's supposed to do. Yeah, we broke up because he didn't have himself together and he's saying some things that are a little off, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be with him anymore. I still love him. That's my husband. So we might be separated for a little bit, but I'm trusting that he'll get himself together, and I pray for him every day. It's a different mentality, right? But people are trying to say, oh no, I'm gonna just make 4. I'm gonna turn it into 1 in my mind, right? This is 1 plus 0.25. This means 1.25. This is 1 1/4. This isn't 2. But people will try to write the same equation and then want you and I to believe, as they're writing the stuff that doesn't make sense. It's not kingdom law, marital law, natural law, universal law of attraction, law of first mention, admiralty law, maritime law, common law, law of equity. It doesn't make sense in any law. It's not procedural law. It's not substantive law. It's not public. It's not private. But they're trying to tell you and I that it adds up. They can't even explain it to you themselves. Right? So he says, the third point, once again, Matthew chapter 5, verse 19, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments shall teach men so, the kingdom of heaven, or is considered to be, is called. The word called means is invited. That word called, it means invited. So when you do that, you are invited to a place that you might not want to be in, where you are considered to be the least in the kingdom, right? However, those of you who shall teach people to do it and do the law, you will be considered to be great in the kingdom of heaven. You are considered to be great. All right. And then lastly, verse 20, so we can make sure we get this together, especially those who are on the podcast, as we're getting ready to run out of time on the podcast. Thank you guys for being on with us, just in case it cuts off on us in the middle of this. He says, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness. And really, it doesn't even say the righteousness, because that's in italics. That means that word wasn't there. So really, it says something more along the lines of this. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So he says, look, if you don't know more law than the scribes and Pharisees, because they're the ones that make up the law. They're the ones that are preaching the sermons. They're the ones that are teaching your children. They're the ones that are telling you what you think is right and wrong. You better know as much law as them, or you better at least have the same source that they come from. Because if you don't know where the same source comes from, or you don't know where that stuff is coming from, he says they're going to get you every time. And isn't that what happens? You're out here voting for people who have no good, no greatness. Have you and your people in the same place, and you don't know enough law. Remember, we just talked about earlier, people were talking about creditors and things like that. Don't even know that you're not supposed to pay creditors, because creditors already paid off your stuff. All you got to do is discharge the debt. Didn't even think about it. Why? Because you don't know as much law as the creditor. So the creditor comes and kicks your butt. Right? You have somebody that says pay a tithe or offering. Look, if you pay a tithe or offering, then whoever you're paying the tithe or offering to, you're supposed to be in their care. You're paying the tribute to them. You're paying a tribute, a tithe to them, because you're saying that basically, I know that you're going to take care of me, especially when I come to your place, and you're going to allow me to be authorized to do certain things. Well, if you're paying if I'm paying a tithe or offering to you, and you're not even teaching me how to make sure that I'm still poor and I'm still broke, I still don't know how to do stuff. I'm going through legal issues, and you won't even teach me any of that. You won't tell me how the kingdom does that. And Proverbs 1:3 says I should be learning about equity. Something's wrong, right? You talking about taking on what somebody else says. What is that? Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. You're talking about, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for me. But before that, it says that you can't talk about the wealth of the wicked until you make sure that you take taking steps to cause generational wealth. Because the wicked that you're talking about that have that wealth laid up for them, they do things as far as generational wealth. Willie Lynch syndrome and all that, that was about generational wealth. How you going to get what somebody's dealing with in generational wealth if you're not trying to get generational wealth? That Constantine had scholars write the Bible 316 years after Yashra'al. So once again, you can look at that. You can look at Alexandrian writings, or you can look at Paleo-Hebrew writings. You can look at the Septuagint. You can look at the 4 versions of the Hebrew Bible that came with it. You can see which one is which. And you can study for yourself to see what was changed. You can actually start seeing different words used in the Bible, different mentality used. Once again, that's not our culture, though. We're talking about having been led as we believe. I don't really care about what Constantine believed. By the way, Constantine, he kind of sort of did that, but Constantine, he actually took a step back. He just wanted people who knew about the Bible and knew enough about it, who were arguing about it, to stop arguing, because he wanted his whole kingdom to be under this Christian authority. He wanted to change from what it was to under it being something that he could rule Rome with. So that's what Constantine did, and he got a bunch of people who were arguing. That's one of the reasons why a bunch of books were taken out, is because you had some people that believed in certain things and didn't. So somebody would, it's like what Congress does. They get together, and one person would say, yo, you know what, I don't really believe in the Father, Son, Holy Spirit thing or whatever. Well, I do. Well, somebody say, okay, well, I don't, as long as you take this book of the Bible out, I'll go ahead and roll with you on the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit thing. Or if you take this verse out, we'll go ahead and roll on that. That's why a lot of that stuff got taken out. So even when we're talking about that, you got to look into that even and what it was. Shabbat says, find yourself wanting to know. Kofi, just Google hashtag FindKofi and make sure you keep notes. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Saint Rose says, all tongues, all people who called on the name in Revelation, it came after. Yeah, that came after Revelation. If you're talking about Revelation 7, because Revelation 7, we're not just going to skip over that, the holistic thing. If we're talking about Revelation 7 makes it very clear who we're talking about. Israel being sealed. It gives you the name of the tribes and everything. And then it says all nations, all tongues, all kindreds, all people. But we're not going to skip over. We're not just going to say, hey, I like this one part, but I don't like this part that goes against it, right? So I don't know if we agree or disagree. I'm just saying in general, we should be careful about that. Said no to. It's skipping up on me. I'm trying to catch up with you guys. Says no to multiplied loaves. The capitalist and Bethsaida, I think leftover baskets. 2 different people. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't catch what you were talking about. I'm sorry. Glory surfer. My people suffer from a lack of knowledge. All right. It's my pleasure. Somebody said, thank you for the knowledge. It's my pleasure. Minister Tamara said, Yah knows my heart. Yep. That it's wicked and you need to obey law, or that it's righteous and you need to keep doing what you're doing. Right. But yeah, he knows your heart. And even when we talk about this, like, here's one of the things about law. People don't want to talk about law because they don't want to talk about this right here. Right. Law is dealing with wow, I didn't realize how long that word was, and I started trying to write it down. Law is about accountability. Okay? Law is about accountability. And here's the deal with law. People don't want to be governed by this. Because, yes, you're governed by the law, but the law, you have right. You're a king or you're a queen. So as a sovereign, you're supposed to be able to govern yourself. Therefore, it should be self-accountability. Right? A lot of people just saying, man, I can cuss somebody out, but the blood of Jesus. I say it like this a lot. I haven't used this thing in a while, I guess. It feels like I haven't said this in a while, but a lot of people feel like they can just sprinkle some Jesus on it. You know how they had that gift or whatever, the person or the dude, and he was just going, or even the meme, and he was just going like this with the salt over the meat. A lot of people just sprinkle some Jesus on it. I appreciate that, Webster, right? A lot of people just like, I can do whatever I want. I can worship whatever I want. I can worship whomever I want. I can love whomever I want. I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to follow any law. You out here talking about law. The law is of none effect. You know why? Because you don't want to be accountable. And the word accountable means you're able to account. A lot of people can't account for a lot of things. A lot of people can't account for a lot of things. And since you can't account for a lot of things, right? You know, if I were to ask the average person, I tell people all the time, you know, I'm not really worried about money per se or whatever, but I tell people this all the time, man. If you want to know where my heart is, if you want to know where somebody's heart is, look at their checkbook. For those who still keep checkbooks. Right? We might lose you on the podcast soon, so we appreciate you for being on. Thank you so much. We're about to take our leave very soon anyways. I'm going to try and get some rest for the day because we're going to be on the road tomorrow when we go live. I'm not sure how many platforms we'll be on since we'll be on the road, but we'll try to be on at least on TikTok and on the podcast if we can. You know, but a lot of people don't want to self-accountability. That's why it's hard to talk about all this stuff. It's hard to talk about how women are treated because then that means you got to look at how you treat women. It's hard to look at when a man says, hey, I don't feel like I'm appreciated, I'm respected, because that means you as a woman got to look at, do I respect men? Like, that's real talk. Like, you know, it's hard to talk to somebody about the Bible and we talk about law, because if you talk about law, then somebody says, ooh, how do I even know what law is? And since you don't know what law is, or I start explaining law and I start talking about Black's law, and I start talking about constitutional law, and I start talking about natural law and what the universe is, therefore what universal law is, people get frustrated and upset. They gotta break away from that because they don't know what I'm talking about. That's why. It's not because I'm wrong. It's not because I'm right. It's because that you don't know what I'm talking about. How are you accountable? How are you even able to account for that which you don't know? The word know even means to be intimate with it. You have no intimacy. Thank you, Sister Cherise. You have no intimacy with what this is, but you're trying to talk about how we account for something. How can you hold me accountable? How are you able to account for what I'm talking about if you don't know what I'm talking about? If you don't know Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, straight up law. And that's Yashra'al. And then if you want to go into slavery and stuff after that, keep on reading, because the next part of it after that, verses 21 through 26, is going to talk about the fact that a lot of you guys are angry because you're not protected by law that causes you to not be angry. And you guys are also in debt, right? And anger and debt go hand in hand. And if you're in debt, people don't comprehend when it talks about debt, it's talking about slavery, because the only person that can be a slave is somebody who's in debt to somebody else. And the only person that can be in debt is a slave. So of course you talking about free will and stuff, but you in debt. How can you be in free will and be in debt simultaneously? Thank you, Sister Beverly. Appreciate you. Right? How can you be in debt and talk about freedom simultaneously? You're not in freedom and you still in debt. Oh, I only got 20 years left on my mortgage. You in debt for 20 years. You're a slave. And don't even know if something pops up, if you can discharge your debt or not, and how to do so. Oh, hey, babe, I didn't even see my wife was on. The Honorable Maya, Bloom and Flourish. Thanks for being on. Once again, you can follow her at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. Doing great things out here and starting to go live. I believe she's starting to start going live 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. I'm not sure if it's daily yet, but I think that's the goal. So you guys support my wife when she comes on as well. And if you have to choose between one or the other, today I'm not going to be on anyways at 8 o'clock p.m. Wednesdays is my day, my night off. I would say my day off, but I don't really do too many days off. Trying to get Shabbat back in order. Actually, that's one of the things I'm trying to do now. The reality is that people don't want to talk about law because law means you have to account for something. Law means I have to account for something. I got to check the books. Somebody says, oh man, that's what law does. Law protects right, but also law is something we can check on. If somebody says, man, what are you're talking about? There's 2 different constitutions. It doesn't make sense. No, we can look up law. We can see if what I'm saying makes sense. We can look up 300215A and see that the United States is a corporation. We can look up the Constitution of the United States versus the Constitution of the United States of America and read both and see how they read with each other simultaneously. We can look up, if I say, don't call yourself colored or black or Negro or anything like that because it's considered to be an artificial person, you can look that up. You can look up if white has a status in the United States of America. You can look that up. legally, right? Law gives us something to account for. This is why we tell people, when you're looking at this, stop looking at this as what you want it to be and look at it what it was designed to be. It is law, it is case study, and it is a law and a case study for people who are part of a specific kingdom, who came out of a specific family, right? And anybody who wants to be grafted into that, they can be adopted in at any point if they want to follow the rules and regulations, the law, the culture of a certain group of people. That's what that book is. You might not like what that book is, but that's what, that book, that's what the Bible is. You might not like what the Bible is. However, that is what the Bible is. Right? You might not like at all what the Bible is, but that's what the Bible is. It tells you so. Brother Dennis says, is it considered debt to feel obligated to go along just to get along? Yeah, that's debt. That's why even it talks about anger. Some people go along with anger just because, they're mad or they're frustrated at somebody, so they're just going to remain angry. That's debt. That's why right after Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20, it's going to go into verses 21 through 26. It's going to talk about debt. If you're angry, you're in debt. But also, too, if you're depressed, you're in debt. A lot of people are dead. That's why that's why it's saying that there's laws to protect you from certain things. If you don't cause people headaches and frustration and stuff, then you don't have to worry about the debt of being frustrated or angered within yourself. You said, doesn't it sound like music? Yes, beloved Majesty, I will support what time? Oh, amen. Yeah, so she's going to be on about 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. So, but that it literally goes like that's your Bible. It's telling you one after the other. And then right after it talks about anger and debt, Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 through 26, Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 through 32. We have all this on our YouTube channels. We have this from when we went over this a while ago, right? When we restarted the YouTube channel before they took down the TikTok page and we had to get back on here, right? If you look on there, right after the, I forget what part. So let's see, we have what, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. So I believe it'd be part 5 on there. Part 5 gets us to a place where we have to have conversation about when we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount series we did. I believe it's part 5 where we start talking about Matthew chapter 5 verses. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me do it again. Yeah, part 5 we start talking about verses 27 through 32. 27 through 32. It talks about marriage. So if you read it, if you start breaking down the Sermon on the Mount, first things first, it's going to talk about the kingdom of heaven belongs to those. To those who swear that it's not for them. It's really for anybody who's willing to be to do things the righteous way, be in right legal standing. So then after that, the second part, hey, make sure that you understand that you're the example. The third part we talked about today, you got to really comprehend this law and get it down and not allow somebody else to start beating you down with what you should know better than them. The next part after that, don't get into debt and don't be so angry that you end up in debt to other things, right? Indebted to other things or other people that you shouldn't be. And then the fifth part right after that, verses 27 through 32, now let's start dealing with your marriage. Think about that. Before I can even be dealing with marriage, and in our culture, sex is marriage and marriage is sex. Before I can get into that type of relationship with somebody, first things first, I have to learn that the kingdom has to be in me. Then I have to learn how to be an example. Then I have to learn how to obey the law. Then I have to make sure I'm not in debt to anybody else and I'm not sitting here angry all day and not allowing that to push me anywhere. Then I can start considering marriage and how to be faithful and all these things. Because if I don't have those things together, it's going to be hard for me to be faithful. It's going to be hard for me to not commit adultery. It's going to be hard for me to not commit fornication. It's going to be hard for me to be married, period. Right? It's going to be difficult. This is law. Law is there. It's case study. And it's a law, case study, and culture based off of specific people trying to live a certain way. You can be grafted in. You can live the way that you live. You can be grafted in, etc. It's about all of us coming together. And a lot of people are not trying to live by that. Period. Right? So that's all that I have, though. Thank you guys for being on. I appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Our prayers that you not only just have heard what was said today, but you study it, pray about it, meditate on it so that you can be able to do it in your life as well. A lot of people hear a word, but they don't do what the word that they hear says. So study it, make sure that it's something that's correct, that's something that makes sense, etc. to you. And once you study that, you'll be able to find that you'll be able to live it in a more righteous manner. We will not be on. I will not be on tonight, but my wife will be on at 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. Look for her on TikTok. I'm not sure, possibly even on Big O Live, not sure, but look for her at least on TikTok. Hashtag Find Bloom. If you don't follow her already, she's Bloom and Flourish. Let's look through the comment section. You should be able to find her. If you're looking for her on Facebook, just look up Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, BLOOM, Bloom, the letter N, Flourish, FLOURISH, and look for her on TikTok at 7:00 p.m. Eastern. And we're thankful and grateful for those that will do that and help us out. Y'all pray for us as we get ready to do some traveling. We will be back on, though, regardless of where we are. Prayerfully, we'll have our signal and everything together, but we will be back on tomorrow, 8:00 p.m. Eastern, New York time. And we invite you all to join us and spend some time with us. Maybe we'll be on as long as we are. Maybe we won't. Thank you very much for that. And don't forget, this Saturday coming up, there's going to be Women in Red. Those who are on the Hebrew Holy Day Committee, we asked if you guys could meet up today instead of tomorrow, just because it's a lot of stuff. And maybe instead of 7 p.m., it might be 8 p.m. just because of the live. So we can look at those things. But regardless, we're looking at meeting with you guys soon, especially those of you who are on the committee and are going to be speaking at the Women in Red event on Saturday. That'll be on Saturday on Zoom only at 6:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. No charge to be able to get in. So if you want the matter of fact, I believe the link is on Eventbrite as well. But we'll try to start giving that information out. Maybe I'll try to put that in some of our videos or in some of the stuff on YouTube videos. Also, concerning our YouTube videos, we have started our series on the 12 Myths of Christmas. So we have that available for you all. And I've been looking at some of the stuff the brothers are working on hard behind the scenes on to try and have a quick turnaround for maybe 2 or 3 cartoons for the children in this series. And they look very nice. They probably won't come out to the earliest Tuesday or Wednesday. So maybe it'll be like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It'll be something like, very nicely done and grafted. And I'm excited about it. One of the brothers, he showed the other ones of us what he did, and it was powerful. And if we get this in order the way we'd like to, using this technology, we'll probably have a lot of videos that can come out like that. So we're very excited because we want this to be something that reaches people on all levels. Some people are more visual than others. We have children that like to be able to watch things. And so, hey, if they can watch all this stuff on YouTube, why not watch some of the other things? So and it's even stuff that we can possibly put on our young, Solomon's YouTube channel, the channel that we use for our young children. So we're excited about that. So keep that in prayer as well. But keep on looking for those. That's on our YouTube channel, hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. You can also look up the website, kofi-ofori.com, KOFI-OFORI.com. Don't forget, brothers, we're going to be meeting up. And pray for us. Not only December 18th is the Women in Red. Before that, we're going to be doing our clothing drive. So pray for us as far as that's concerned. December 25th, we're going to be doing something specifically for our children and really for our family, all of us, for us to be able to get together and not have to, for those of us that are going cold turkey on Christmas, it's not going to be a Christmas celebration. So just remember that, just know that we're not going to be doing a Christmas celebration. However, if you'd like to be able to join us and have something for your grandchildren or children to do, if you're doing, especially people who are going cold turkey and have never not done Christmas and have already getting backlash from family, we'll have that stuff together for you. Really, you know what? No excuse for it. I guess by tomorrow, if you want to text me about it, we'll have a list of things for you to be able to make sure that your children are doing. Also, we're going to be on Roblox as well. So we're going to have it set up where the children can talk to each other on Zoom, but also be able to play on Roblox, which is something they don't normally get to do. So that's a pretty cool thing. So if you want to have that set up where you can have them have conversation and stuff, we need to know in advance stuff so we can make sure that we have everybody on friends lists and stuff like that, whatever their names are on Roblox. So we need to, and we're going to finish researching some games, and we need to make sure that you have a list of games that you can go to so that our children can just go from one place to the next and do some virtual stuff as well as play some games and things like that. We might do a little bit of Kung Fu. I don't know, might have everybody dress up, and some stuff that they can, get a little dirty or whatever, sweaty or whatever, and we might do some Kung Fu stuff while doing our teaching. My wife maybe have a lesson plan or two for us to be able to go over things, and we want to do that to have them see that just because you don't celebrate something pagan doesn't mean that you have nothing to celebrate, right? So we're going to do that as well. Brothers, we're going to meet up December 29th, which will be not today, obviously, but next Wednesday or Wednesday. We'll meet up on that day. And then December 31st is going to be watch night service. So for the most part, I'll kind of be taking the lead on that. And especially since it's our first one, I'll kind of be taking the lead, or at least our first one in this manner. We'll be kind of taking the lead on that. So feel free to join up with us for that and be part of that. That'll start 10:30 p.m., even though the beginning of it will pretty much be praise and worship. Also, as a reminder, if you want to join us for Watch Night Service, we'll give you the link for that next week. If you want to join us for Watch Night Service, that'll also be on Zoom. What we're asking for is that if you would like, be willing to take, it's going to be a short amount of time. So we're talking about 30 seconds to a minute. Please be aware of that. I don't want to be rude and cut anybody off in the midst of it. But, we want to make sure as many people have an opportunity to, if they would like to speak on what Yah is speaking to them about from what they got from this past year, or what he's talking about going into next year. The next year is going to be when we live in that which we pursue. This is our year of pursuit, so we're going to live in that which we pursue next year. So if you'd like to join us on that journey and participate in that, you are more than welcome to, and we're thankful and grateful in advance for you taking time out to do that with us. So that's all I really have at this point. I'm thankful and grateful for each and every one of you who joined us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to do so. Thank you for loving on one another and loving on us as a family. And we don't take it lightly that you would do so. We're honored to be in your presence. We're honored to have, these conversations with you. We're honored to continue to move forward in what the Most High has for all of us and each of you. And we'll be back on here tomorrow, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, New York time. Remember, once again, my wife will be on 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, New York time. So make sure that you join us for that. So we thank you. We appreciate you as always. This has been Pastor Kofi, a.k.a. the Shadow Band One, Pastor and Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. As always, remember that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.